Hello from beautiful Redmond, Washington, and we are coming at you with a live version of GitHub Copilot Dev Days. So I'm really pumped and glad that you could join us today, because today is going to be a great show. We are going to dive deep into all things GitHub Copilot. We are going to be talking about GitHub Copilot on the CLI, GitHub Copilot with VS Code, GitHub Copilot on Visual Studio, and we're going to wrap up the day with a session where you can get your hands dirty, where we're going to walk through with a GitHub Copilot workshop, where you can ask live questions, we'll go back and forth, and we will build something, and it will be great. But first, let me tell you what this GitHub Copilot Dev Days is all about. It's more than just this live stream. It's a worldwide community event. It's a great, great celebration. All right, here we go. So what GitHub Copilot Dev Days was, because it started way back in April, is 300 different community events across the world where 40,000 different attendees came together to learn about GitHub Copilot. We had sessions and we had workshops, and sessions included everything from learning about the new agentic workflows, Copilot in the CLI, the SDK, coding agent, all over the place, and using it in the IDEs as well. And you can see some photos there of the people who got together at the different workshops and so on. So a lot of fun. And you can actually get involved as well yet, because it's not all over. Because if you go to that short link, gh.io/all-the-stuff, you can see all the sessions that were used during the various dev days and the workshops too. So let's say you just want to go and learn on your own, head over there, view the workshops, do it. If you want to go out and maybe use one for a user group, do that too. So please go out to gh.io/all-the-stuff and pull it down, use it, learn it. It's really, really good. All right, so let's move on here and start talking about Copilot. From way back when, 2021, all the way to now, and maybe a little bit in the future, because you know what? AI changes, and it changes quickly. So 4 years ago, Gen AI kind of came onto the scene in coding agents, or AI development assisted coding. And so it was, if you remember way back when, it was kind of just like smart autocomplete. And it was good, it was fine, but things were going to get better. So back then you can kind of think of it as your pair programmer. It was sitting along with you, kind of whispering over your shoulder, this is how you would complete this text. And it eventually went to something called ghost text, where you started writing an if statement and looked at your code and kind of came up with, this would be the rest of your if statement based on what your code was doing. But eventually it got to be more. And that's what the agentic software development lifecycle is, where we can actually start bringing in agents to start doing things for us. Like, so we can now start typing in some specs and handing it off to do the agentic workflow for us, where now we're still sitting in the middle. Humans are still there, but we're now reviewing some code and fixing up the loose ends of it, and still sitting in the middle, making sure everything is going right. And in the future, we're going to have hybrid teams, where we're going to have teams of agents doing the work, humans doing the work, and working together and moving things forward. So we are right now in the middle stage of this, wave 2, and moving on to wave 3, where we're going to have these hybrid teams of us and the agents working together to build great and amazing applications. So we have one GitHub Copilot, and it's everywhere you work. And what I mean by that is that you can have GitHub Copilot on github.com and the GitHub mobile apps. So what I'll call the quote-unquote first-party applications. And then, of course, you can have it in VS Code, which is where a lot of folks may have originally encountered GitHub Copilot. Also in various IDEs as well, such as the JetBrains IDEs, third-party IDEs, Eclipse, and of course it's going to be in Visual Studio too, and Xcode. It is all over the place. And We'll have a couple sessions on this. I'll talk about it, and we'll have right after this another session. It's in the terminal. Copilot CLI. It is amazing. I didn't think I would love the terminal until I started using it, and now honestly I can't get away from it. It's in Slack and Teams, right? You could be just talking with your teammates, offload something to Copilot from Teams. Pretty cool. And everywhere where you're tracking your work, whether it's in DevOps, Linear, or Jira, pop it in, you can have Copilot there as well. So it's all over the place where you can start integrating it and keep your workflow going. So a little bit about the Copilot in the CLI, or GitHub Copilot CLI. And I'm just going to say right now, when I say Copilot, I mean GitHub Copilot. So I'll stop saying GitHub Copilot all the time. Anyways, so the Copilot CLI kind of gives you is what we are calling a TUI, a Terminal User Interface. And it has a ton of core features in there where you can actually see diffs of the files that you change. And it knows about multi-file context of things that it has changed, all the files in your project, so it kind of gets that awareness of what to do. It has MCP servers available to it. It has skills available to it. You can have different modes where it can plan, where it can do autopilot, where it just kind of goes off and implements the code until it's finished. All the different things. It is full featured. And I'll take a quick peek at it in the demo coming up, but we'll also have a different session on this where we'll dive deep into it. And of course, there is a Visual Studio Code. If you don't want to work in the CLI, and I don't blame you, you want to have the full Code editor available to you, there is VS Code. And VS Code brings Copilot in with everything that you're used to with VS Code. All the extensions are still there. You still can build and test and everything else. You have all the capabilities of Copilot agent mode, planning, run it in the background, and so on. You have all the toolings, custom agents, MCP, skills, and so on. All together, you can see your code, though, right in front of you. So it's a little bit easier to work with if you're used to working with, just coming from VS Code and working with all the files in the editor. And then, Visual Studio. The enterprise development, integrated development IDE for .NET works across C++ and so on, but same deal. Copilot is in there. We can do the same life cycle where you're used to when you're coding by yourself, but now you can get Copilot in there to help you out. It has all the agents in there as well. You can hook up MCP servers. You have all the tools. So you're bringing all the goodness of Visual Studio over into the agentic development AI-assisted world as well. So all the goodness of Visual Studio plus the goodness of Copilot pushed together. And of course, there is Copilot in the third-party IDEs, Eclipse, JetBrains, and Xcode, which is really exciting because you still have things like the custom agents available. You can still do plan mode. You can still have instruction files available to it. So all of these things that you might have used in VS Code or the CLI are available in the IDEs that are not originated from Microsoft. So that's actually something I want to drive home, that Copilot is available everywhere, which is actually super, super neat. And then this final slide, which is really cool, and there's going to be a nice little animation on this one coming up, is that there is GitHub Mobile, right? And so nothing makes your family happier is when you start unloading GitHub Copilot agents on a mobile session. So you can do it on the go. You see an issue or a code pull request come through, and then you can send an agent after it to say, you know what, I want to check for any security vulnerabilities with this session. So you're out walking the dog, and you can steer the agent or kick off a whole agent session and see it work. So, and you can see all the other agent sessions that you might have launched from VS Code or from the CLI there as well. So one Copilot everywhere that you go. All right, I have done enough talking, so I'm going to jump into a demo now to show you what we are looking at between the CLI and VS Code all together. All right, so this is what we are dealing with. It is a very, very simple, of course, I vibed up the blog. And what it does, lists the latest posts. You can go in, you can see the post. And the way you add a new post is you create a new issue on the repo for the blog itself. Add a title, write a description, and then when it comes through of the issue, what I would do is all I need to do is do a /approve, and it creates the post itself. So that's what we're dealing with today, is that we're going to take this blog and make it better by sending across some agentic AI development with it. So first thing first, let's take a peek at the CLI. Now, as I mentioned, the CLI has a couple different things put into it. I just want to show off that we do have MCP servers available to us. So in here, I don't have too many different ones loaded up. I have the Aspire one here. So if I was doing some .NET development, .NET Aspire development, I would have this all there. I actually have a Slack and a WorkIQ MCP server and so on. So I can use this just as any other MCP host client as well. There's also things called skills. And so skills are kind of sort of similar to MCP servers. I think they're kind of they will take over from MCP servers in that they give you a way to do specialized things and include instructions on how to do the specialized thing that you want to do, and even maybe some code files to run. So without getting too deep on what skills are, you can see I have some here like working with Word files, working with loops itself, and also one to suggest other skills from Awesome Copilot. So what I can just do here is suggest some skills from Awesome Copilot, which is a repo that we have that lets you customize the AI output from GitHub Copilot that are pertinent to this project. Just suggest one. All right, so I'm going to let this skill go off and run, and just let it come up, and it should say once it thinks about it after the working that it's going to invoke the skill, and then once it says it does, we'll jump in to, yep, it's going to run the skill recommender, Awesome Copilot suggest skills. And so while it goes off and thinks about that, the next thing I want to implement here is, or show off, is the plan mode of this Copilot CLI. So if I hit Shift-Tab, I can go between different modes. So this first mode, and you can tell it's just, doesn't have any extra coloring at the bottom. This is just regular mode, what I'll call, I'm going to do something, talk back and forth to it. It's what I did with the skill. Just do something for me. When I go to plan mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Copilot put together a plan to accomplish something for me before it takes any action. So I'm going to say here, let's implement some page navigation. Do it as I have in, and if I do an @ symbol, I can start referencing files that I have in my application. So I already put in some navigation specs that I want Copilot to follow. So I'm going to say, let's implement some page navigation and follow what I have in the navigation specs file. Read it thoroughly first, and then come up with the plan. Don't bother to ask me any questions, just do it. All right, so it's going to go off and figure out the plan to do it. And when it's done, it's going to say, here it is, what do you want me to do with it? Cool. So as it works with that, I'm going to start to do yet another thing. I am really going to challenge all my context that I have in my head right now. And so this third thing I want to show off is that we are running on autopilot. You can see that has, excuse me, that has that light green at the bottom and it says autopilot. So what autopilot does, it just takes off and runs until the task I give it is finished. And so what I want to implement now on my website is a light and dark mode. So implement light and dark mode as per outlined in the light and dark mode spec. Read that spec thoroughly. I like to tell, make sure, and finish up, exclamation point, and off we go. All right, excuse me. So it's going to go off, read everything, and it should be implementing the light and dark mode. So I'm going to jump back to our skills that we had it go up and suggest. And it says it went through, looked at everything, and it's because this is an Astro site, it's suggesting there's a skill out there called Chrome Dev Tools, and it thinks that would be the one skill that we should invoke here to help us out going forward. Cool. And let's see here. All right, so next, my plan. It has come up with everything, and now it's asking me, do we want to accept a plan? Do we want to accept a plan or exit and I'll prompt myself? What do we want to do? I'm going to exit plan mode and I'll prompt myself. And what I'm going to say here, now I could just go ahead and say, you know what, go ahead and build it. But I'm going to say delegate this. Delegate and implement the plan. And what delegate does is it's going to actually send it up to the coding agent in the cloud and let GitHub Copilot ask for it. So yep, let's go with that. Yes. Sounds good. And now it's going to go off, create this new branch, summarize the conversation that we had here. So it's essentially taken the whole conversation that we had in this particular tab and sending it off to GitHub in the cloud to do everything. And so we'll take a peek at this and see it running on github.com in just a second when it runs through here once it starts its work. All right, and let's finally now go see. Our light and dark mode task is complete. Cool. All right, so let me just we'll jump out to here. I'll refresh. And I see theme light, theme dark, neat, we got it. But great. So now I'm going to jump back out to this. This is the repo. If I go to agents, and I can see now it's implementing the implementation plan. So that was the thing that we just sent off. All right, so now we are moving fast. We are continuing to move fast. And then now we are going to go into our code. And so one thing I want to show off here is I am going to bring up the agent window. And so you can see all of the code that or the agent sessions that we're working on. We have implement light and dark mode, implement page navigation, and so on. What I am going to do is create a new one down here, and I'm also going to go to View, Browser. All right, so this is actually going to be really neat. So when I go to View Browser, I'm going to then bring up my Pocket Post Place here. So this is integrated within Visual Studio Code, which is actually really, really cool. So now I'm kind of reducing the burden of having me go out and back to see the changes I want to make. And then this button on the URL bar, I can do share with agent. So it's asking me, do I want to allow that? And then it has this really cool highlighting around it. And now my agent has access to that browser. So what I can say here then is change the theme to dark mode. And because the agent has access to the browser, it's going to be able to see, all right, cool. I should have said change it as, click on the dark mode button. How about that? Dark/light mode button. There. Now it should know that I want it to do the clicking. There. So it went ahead and did the clicking for me. And so that's actually kind of cool. So now I can actually start iterating on things like this. So let's say I wanted to get rid of the top level header here. That doesn't do anything for me. Remove the top level header that says thoughts published with blah, blah, blah. Remove the whole section. So I'm actually now kind of just going one back and forth and then seeing how the resulting page looks as we move through it. And there, gone. Pretty cool. So then navigate into a post, pick any one of them. And so yeah, this is actually really cool. So it kind of gives you the feeling of I don't know, it's neat. Just be able to go back and forth and iterate while watching it in a live mode, live reload mode itself. So very, very cool. All right, so the next thing what I want to do is let's see if our page navigation is done. Here, still processing. So once that gets done, I can bring it back in. And what I'm going to do then, while we wait for that, is one of the things that we have, both within the CLI and within VS Code, of course, is that we can pick various models that we want to run. Right now I'm using GPT-5.3 Codex. Works great, but if I wanted to boost things up and have it really think I can run Opus 4.7 or GPT-5.4, I'm super happy with 5.3 Codex, as you saw as I was going back and forth. Just works great. It also has MCP servers as well. So for here I look, and I have a GitHub MCP server within a VS Code, and so I can actually start looking at all of the PRs and list all of the issues and so on. So I'm going to say, give me a status on any open pull requests for this repo. And so now it should be using the MCP server to see about any pull requests that we have going on. And another thing I can do is I can change the way the approvals work. I can use it as the default approvals, which has it prompt me anytime it wants to do something that could be destructive, like change some things, like run a terminal command. Or I can go to bypass approval, where all tool calls just get approved. And so that's what I'm going to do, enable that. And it's saying, came back with my PR, and I'll make this bigger so everybody can see it a little bit easier, is we got one PR, number 8, and it's working on the back previous navigation. So nothing else has been found quite yet. Cool. So let's see if it has made it up All right, very good. It has finished. And I'm just going to believe it worked because that is the way I roll. And instead of merging it into main, I'm going to merge it into my current branch, which is called Dev Day Show. Oh, we should be good. All right. So what I'm going to pull down then is the branch called Hostile Rodent. And then let's see if it worked. I'm going to bring the agent over, open this back up. I'm going to start a new session. Click into a post. And I'm not seeing my back and forth, so let's just make sure. Didn't get it. All right. So instead of trying to debug it here, since we're running almost out of time, I'm going to jump back to the slides real quick, and I will do some debugging on the repo, and I'll put it on the README. All right, so you have all the latest models that are available, right? So we took a peek at it. We looked at, I was running everything with Codex 5.3, but you have everything from Anthropic there, Gemini, and you can run everything locally too if you wanted to with Ollama or Foundry Logo as well. And your one GitHub subscription is going to work everywhere. Right, so we showed it working in GitHub.com, we showed it on the CLI, we showed it in VS Code. It's the same subscription. You don't have to subscribe to different ones. It's just going to work everywhere. And even things that you are so, as you would think as normal IDEs, SQL Server Management Studio, and Raycast as well, they work in too. So with that, thank you. That was a high-level, quick shot of the CLI and VS Code working together to mess with a really simple blog. And I'll get that page navigation working and pop it up on the repo, and we'll put all that in the show notes. And so what we have coming up next is a deep dive into the Copilot CLI. I really am a big fan of the CLI. I could have spent the entire demo in that messing around and showing about it. But we have Julia Murari coming up, and she is going to show us even more about it. So I'm really excited for this session, and it's going to be a remote session. And do we have Julia online right now? If we can bring her up, that would be great. So we can throw it over. Otherwise, I will keep on talking. Okay, so one of the great things about the Copilot CLI that I really like is all the different modes that are available. There's another one that's called Fleet Mode. And Fleet Mode, what that can do is that you can actually send off a couple different agents at once. And so let's say we were going to implement that paging, the navigation again. So instead of sending it up to the cloud, and I just wanted to do everything locally, I could have actually did /fleet, and then just kind of busted that out. And a bunch of different agents in the background could have started pounding away at that and started working on it, which is actually really cool. And I'm going to actually, okay, another thing I wanted to mention with the skills themselves is I told you I brought that down from Awesome Copilot. And so if we can get my screen shown again for just a second, is what Awesome Copilot is that these are all community contributed things. Different. We have instructions, we have skills, we have hooks, workflows, and so on that I will talk about throughout this day that help you customize the AI responses from Copilot. Again, I'll put this link in the show notes so you can check it out. So with that, we have our next session ready, digging in deep to the Copilot CLI with Julia. I'm really excited, and I think you're really going to enjoy this one.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. Welcome again to GitHub Copilot Dev Days. My name is Julia. I am a developer advocate at Microsoft, and I'm in a black t-shirt. I have a black pair of glasses on, and I have black and brown braided hair. I'm so excited to be joining you live from Nairobi, Kenya. So in this segment of the session, and thank you so much, Matt, for the introduction. That was a really good overview of everything GitHub Copilot. But for this segment, we are going to focus on GitHub Copilot CLI. We'll look at how you can get started and what it is you can achieve by using this tool. So in the course of the presentation, if you have any questions, we have an amazing team ready for you on the chat. So feel free to pop your questions in there throughout the presentations. And so with that, we'll get started. Now, if by any chance you have not worked with GitHub Copilot CLI before, this is a feature-rich agent that lives in your terminal. We continue to see the uprising of CLI-based agents, and this simply just proves that developers spend a considerable amount of time in your terminals. So in as much as you have your files open, you're writing code, if you still do that to date, you spend a good amount of your time in the terminal either running tests, deploying your cloud infrastructure, or debugging sessions from field test and field build commands. So you do spend a fair amount of your time on the terminal, and this context most often is always either treated as secondary context or just overlooked. So with the terminal, the CLI, the GitHub Copilot CLI, we basically bring this powerful agentic experience directly in your terminal with a unique set of integrations and extensibility features that you will see throughout the day. So how to get started? Number one, ensure that you have a GitHub Copilot subscription. And then number two, you need to install Copilot CLI on your computer. Now, if you're running on a Windows machine, you can easily get the CLI using Winget, or you can install it directly from the Microsoft Store. If you're on Mac or Linux, you can get the CLI using Homebrew, or you can alternatively install it using NPM. Now, once you have it installed, then I'm going to exit my slides, and I'm going to have my terminal here. As soon as you have the CLI installed, launching the agent is as easy as typing Copilot on your terminal, and that just brings out this beautiful banner, which will come in any second now. And then you now have the agent live and ready for interaction. Again, if you're using it for the very first time, you will be prompted to log into your GitHub account, or you can do this manually by typing the /login command. And this will start an OAuth flow. It will give you a temporary code, redirect you to the browser. You can sign in with your preferred GitHub account and get started with the Copilot CLI. Now, once you're signed in, you can come back again, do /user, and this should confirm for you the GitHub account that you have active for your active CLI session. And that's it when it comes to setting up Copilot. It's now ready for me to start using it directly from my terminal. So I'll switch back to my slides. And that's the installation step. Now, the next thing is that you can interact with Copilot CLI in a variety of different modes, each of them designed to support specific use cases. So you see here 3 distinct modes that you can interact with the CLI, and we're going to spend some time on each, see a demo, and see how you can basically get the most out of this tool. So the first interaction mode is using Copilot in a non-interactive type of interaction. So this way, you're running it in its headless state. So this means, and you can think of use cases that involve automation pipelines or your CI/CD workflows. In this case, you just want to send a one-off prompt to Copilot, get the output back, and then inject that output as part of your existing workflow. And so to demonstrate this, I'm going to again hop out of my slides and then back here on my terminal. I'm going to give a practical example. So every single week, I host a live stream on the GitHub account, Rubberduck Thursdays, where we connect with the community, talk about everything that's new in the world of GitHub. And our conversations are often grounded in what is available in the GitHub changelog. So we basically discuss what's new, do some demos around that. And so if you see in this folder, I have a script. So I have an rdt.sh script. So I'm going to execute that script. And while it runs on this terminal, I will open a second terminal, and then we're going to inspect what we have in this file. So at the top here, you'll see it's a regular script. I'm running it using bash. I'm running it in strict mode, and then I'm defining the output that I want. In this case, it's a single markdown file. And then you see me down here sending a prompt to Copilot. And here is the syntax. So I'm using Copilot-P, or you can alternatively use Copilot -- prompt. And then in double quotes, you send in your prompt. So in this case, we're telling Copilot that, hey, you are preparing content for Rubberduck Thursdays, a weekly GitHub developer live stream. Today's date is this. Fetch and read content from the changelog and the GitHub blog platform. And then I want you to return a Markdown document structured as follows. So it has the header, it has different sections for a summary, changelog, updates, demo ideas, etc. So at the bottom here, I'm also passing in some parameters. So for example, I am running -s to run this silently and have Copilot drop any session metadata and just give me the output. I'm then running it in a no ask user mode. So I don't want it to ask me any clarifying questions. And I'm only restricting it to the github.blog URL destination, which is recommendation number 1. If you're using the Copilot CLI in an environment where you don't have 100% control over, you do want to limit the tools that you give it access to, as well as the URL destinations. So that is what our script is doing. I'll go back to the first tab, and you'll see that we have a new file that has been added. So I'm going to open this Markdown file that has been created. And what you see here is, we actually have quite a lot, given that it's just Wednesday this week. So we have at the very top a header, Rubberduck Thursdays, week of 27th May. That's today's date. There's one paragraph summarizing what's new in the world of GitHub. And then we have items for each of the announcements that have been posted on the changelog. I can click on the link here to verify and validate that. So this really helped me get ahead as I prepare for my live stream. I have some insights on what's new, and you can already see how this can come in handy. So this can be part of a GitHub action. Every single morning as part of my setup routine, I can have a message just telling me what's new in the world of GitHub. And at the very bottom here, it actually gives me some demo ideas, right? So it's giving me some demos that I can run with the community to demonstrate these new features. So again, I'll switch back to my slides. That's the first mode, that you can interact with Copilot in a headless state. And you can already think of the many possibilities given your automation pipelines, have Copilot produce output that can be injected into your workflows. Then mode number 2 is the most popular mode, which is using Copilot CLI in its interactive state. So this means that you engage in a series of back and forth prompts and conversations with the agents in an interactive state. And again, as I mentioned at the beginning, this agent is not just a baseline flatline agent, but it comes with so many features. And how you invoke and use these features is through / commands. So if you launch Copilot in your terminal, you can easily just type the special character /, and then this will give you access to a very long list of different features that are ready for you to use, including switching between your custom agents, your models, managing your context, understanding the token consumption, etc. And so for this, I will jump back into my terminal, and I'm going to hop into a different project here. I will type Copilot to launch the Copilot CLI. And then there we go. I'm going to use the special character /, and then this will see, and you'll definitely see the list of available features. As I've said, this list is so long, so do spend some time going through the list of features that you can use with Copilot. So for now, I'm going to look through the available models that I have. So if you do /models, you should see the list of models that are available. This list will vary depending on the type of subscription across different users. So you will see models that you have access to. So for now, I'm just going to switch to auto mode. Now, auto mode is an interesting selection because what happens is behind the scenes, auto mode is backed by 2 different systems. So the first system is looking at the models that you have access to, and then it's looking at their availability as well as their health. And then system number 2 is analyzing the complexity of your prompt. And then it combines the 2 to make a model selection on your behalf. So you'll see in this case, it decided to go with GPT 5.3 codex. So I can use Copilot here in an interactive mode. So I can go in with a prompt like, give me a brief overview of this project. I can send that in, and in this interactive mode, I can see the thinking steps of the model. I can see its internal thoughts. I can see the tools that it makes, the calls that it makes. I can as well see if the agent is taking a direction that is not what I want it to be doing. I can easily steer it back on track. So this is the experience as you're working with the agent through this interactive mode. And of course, as an output, we should expect a simple explanation of what this project is. In this case, it's a simple VS Code extension that focuses on redacting sensitive information during live presentations. So that's basically the baseline of how you can interact with the agent. Now, a key advantage of the Copilot CLI specifically is the rich set of customization options that you have. Now, if I type in /env, this command allows me to see a list of customizations that are being applied into my Copilot session. So this starts from any custom instructions that I have defined for the agent to use. In this case, I have none. And then it goes on to the MCP servers. So you can have your agent running directly on the terminal, communicate with and connect to external services, your data sources, and pull in context to complete tasks. And out of the box with the Copilot CLI, you get the computer use and the GitHub MCP servers by default. So they are built in. You can choose to disable or enable your MCP servers depending on the task at hand. And of course, we do have the dedicated MCP set of commands that allow you to easily manage and modify different MCPs as you proceed. Then the other set of customizations is the skills, which are basically folders of customizations, instructions, scripts, and resources that the agent can choose to load in order to improve the output that it gives you. So for example, if I have my agent running from the terminal and I want it to interact with some Word documents, it's going to pull in from the doc skills that I have provided. And similarly, I can run the skills command here and see the set of available commands that I can easily manage all these options without leaving the terminal environment. So this is the same for custom agents, for your plugins, for your extensions, etc. So we have a variety of and a very broad spectrum of customization options as you're working with Copilot directly on the terminal. So back on my slides, I'm going to restart. So I keep talking about customization options that you have. And of course, you can bring in your personalized custom agents. So you define a simple markdown file with the extension .agent.md. And this gives you access to a personalized agent that the Copilot CLI can work with. But then another factor that makes Copilot CLI a really, really powerful developer tool is the set of built-in agents that you get out of the box. So without even doing any form of customizations, you get a set of powerful built-in agents, starting from a dedicated research agent, which just takes a topic from you, does its own deep research, and gives you a final research report as the output. And then you can take that report and handle it and pass it over to the plan agent. Now, the plan agent will create a full implementation plan, whether it's for a full system or a feature implementation. It will just output a plan that is ready to be built. And then we also have this last option of autopilot. This is a mode that you should use with a lot of caution, because the baseline is that you give it access to all the tools and then it will run independently up until a task is complete. So what I'll spend some more time on is showing you some additional built-in tools that are not on this list. So back on our terminal here, I'm going to get into our previous project, that is KeyMask, and then I'm going to launch the Copilot CLI. From here, you'll see the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to run the agent/agent command. You'll see that I don't have any custom agents built. And so coincidentally, the tip for today is actually /review, which is the first custom agent that I want to demonstrate. So with a code review agent, this basically performs a code review of your local changes before you push them to GitHub. So I'll run /review, and then I'm going to just have the agent analyze the code changes that I've made. I see there's another security review feature that is still in experimental mode. So this allows you to focus on security vulnerabilities in your changes. But for now, I'm just going to stick with the /review option. I'm going to send that in. And you'll see that the agent here recognizes that this is a request for the code review agent. It's a standalone built-in agent. It picks up the task, and you will see it interacting with my code. So it's running some shell commands. It's reading through my files. It will attempt to build and run the project. And then I do expect that in a short moment, it will come back with some review findings that I can basically use to improve this code even before I get it off my computer. So that's a really, really useful feature. So in this case, you see it comes back with some issues, categorizes them as high, medium, and low. So this is a really, really good starting point. At this point, I have several options. So I can choose to either have the agent work on these issues or either create GitHub issues for me to work on them one after the other, or a third option that I will demonstrate to show us the next built-in agent, which is the rubber duck agent, right? And I will use this rubber duck agent to get a second opinion on this code review. So at this point, I have my issues already identified. And so right here on Copilot CLI, I'm going to explicitly use the rubber duck command. So what this does is that it runs an independent critique, and I'll go in with a prompt that I want you to review the findings above, compare them with my code base, and then surface any gaps. What will happen here is you'll see that my main agent is running using Sonnet 4.6. And so the main agent using Sonnet is going to recognize that I am sending this prompt directly to the Rubberduck agent. So it gathers some context from my code base. It's going to read through the files. It will get the full context, and then it's going to send that to the Rubberduck agent. And then momentarily, we're going to see the Rubberduck agent kick in. And what you'll realize is that this agent is using GPT 5.4. So let's talk about what is happening here. This Rubberduck agent is designed to enforce the cross-model family validation. So what this means is my main agent here is using Sonnet 4.6, a model from the Claude family. So the Rubberduck agent comes in with a model from a different family, in this case GPT, and just does a validation of what the previous model did. So what we end up having here is improved performance, since we have different model families with their own set of strengths and weaknesses. So we sort of marry the two and get the best of both worlds. Now, the team behind this feature actually published findings that with a combination of your base agent plus Rubberduck, you get a performance that is close to what you would get by using the Opus models. And we all know that the biggest challenge right now with Opus models is how expensive they are. So you can easily get near Opus level performance with this combination of the Rubberduck agent. So we see that shortly, it actually confirms some of the earlier issues. It identifies some false positives, and it also surfaces some gaps, which it's able to basically just enforce and give me a better outcome. So the next part of this demo is the relationship between humans and agents, coding agents, continues to evolve. So it's no longer one-to-one agent to human, but it also evolves to be multi-agentic. So out of the box with the Copilot CLI, you get an environment that supports a hierarchical structure. So you have a main agent that delegates tasks to sub-agents. And so with that, we'll get to the last part of this demo, where you can see that interactively, I'm going to switch my model. So my go-to model for everything code is GPT 5.5. I'll stick with the default context window and the reasoning effort. And then I'm going to go in and use the /fleet command. So with this command, I'm going to ask the agent to address all the issues in the code and ensure that it has a master list that it will update as these issues are fixed. And then at the end, test the extension before it exits the loop. And what happens here is that my main agent, GPT 5.5, is going to analyze my prompt, break it down into small problems, and then it's going to identify if we have problems that can be solved in parallel, if we have any dependencies, and then it's going to dispatch independent sub-agents to work on the different parts of this problem. So you'll see that it dispatches 3 agents, and I can use the /tasks command here to see the list of sub-agents as they work in the background. So this is particularly helpful because these sub-agents each have their own context window. So that means that whatever these sub-agents are doing, or their back and forth is not accounted for in the main context window. So you'll see the agent now interacts with the sub-agents in a managerial kind of role. So it's looking through how the agents work. And then at this point, I am prompted to allow Copilot to store or reserve memory. So what happens here is that we have Copilot memory, which allows Copilot to save a persistent record of key details about my repository. And this record is available across all the contributors in this repo. So if I have the cloud agent sitting on GitHub, if I have third-party agents interacting with my repo, they all can reference this memory and just have a better understanding of what it is I'm trying to achieve. So we'll see this interaction, the main agent looking through the different sub-agents, trying to understand the tasks as they get completed. It's going to validate that everything is completed as should. And basically, you get this out of the box with no additional customizations as you're using the Copilot CLI. So that, of course, will give you a final report. The agent will come back and report of all the tasks that have been completed, and you can basically now have that kind of interaction with the agent. All right, so that's using Copilot in an interactive mode. So the last part is how you can use Copilot in its server mode. So this means you can run Copilot CLI in the server mode. It's going to expose a JSON RPC port and allow you to connect your applications to local CLI sessions. Now, to see this in action, I hope that you can see my slides. To see this in action, we're going to briefly see the GitHub Copilot SDK, which allows you to programmatically connect to a GitHub Copilot CLI session. And the conversation now shifts from you building with AI to actually building AI using the CLI. So let me show you what I mean by that statement. Now, this is the last demo. I'll show you a tool that I'm personally using to manage my courses. So you can think of it as a tool for students. You can come in here, add your different courses. You can add your lecture notes, add your assessments. And I recently added this AI chat feature. So the whole idea is that you can have a chat layer on top of your academic documents, and the agent is going to reference your notes. I can ask questions about concepts that were covered. It will confirm which exact lectures talked about the said concept. And so instead of worrying about building this agent runtime or this orchestration from scratch, I am using, behind the scenes, I'm using the Copilot SDK, the GitHub Copilot SDK, to connect programmatically to GitHub Copilot CLI. So if I switch to my terminal here and type Copilot, I can easily see the list of sessions that I've had in the terminal. So if I do /resume, you will see the conversation that I just had on my application appearing right here under the CLI sessions. So you will see the prompt that we just provided on the app. You can see the custom tool calls that it made. You can see the summary of the conversation that you had in the application. So the conversation again shifts from you building with AI to adding powerful AI experiences into your applications using and leveraging the GitHub Copilot CLI. So that's it regarding a deep dive into Copilot CLI. You've seen how you can set it up and get started. You've seen the different modes that you can use to interact with the CLI, either headless, interactively, or in server mode to power your applications. And I hope that you get an amazing time and that you get to try it out yourselves. So thank you so much. That's all we have time for this segment. I will now pass it back to Matt.
Great. Thank you so much, Julia. I really love the Copilot CLI. I can just, as we saw during my session, I can just go on and on and on about it. And thanks for showing us all of those different modes. Like the rubber duck mode is really one I totally forgot about when I was doing my session. And it's so powerful how it does the adversarial model review from back and forth on how like one model is saying, you know what, you might not have done that exactly right, and I would have done it this way. And it kind of goes through and gets you to the best result. And as you mentioned, having those two models together can kind of put you back at the opus level, that you would get the first time through. So yeah, that's really cool. So thank you for running through that with all of us, and super appreciate it. So one of the things that I wanted to go back to from my last session that I promised I would get to was, if you remember, I hadn't gotten the remote session. We delegated it out to the cloud for the page navigation. You know what, that was I had a blank. I tried to merge it, the pull request, into the wrong branch. My bad. So
such a fantastic job. I can't believe you've never done it. It sounds like you do a show.
So yeah, so what we're going to do then is have that, merging into the wrong branch. My bad, it's all working. I'll put it up on GitHub so you can check it out. Excuse me. So A couple other things that I want to talk about the CLI is, if you can't tell, I kind of bounce around to the different modes about it, like a butterfly on different flowers. Like, oh, let's talk about that. Oh, talk about that. Is I mentioned fleet mode before, how it kind of breaks down your prompt into a bunch of different tasks that you can go after. All the different, the planning mode, the rubber duck mode, I love rubber duck mode, and autopilot. Now, Julia mentioned that autopilot, you want to be real careful with that. I'll tell you what, I just go autopilot all the time. I launch Copilot in the CLI, Copilot -- YOLO. You only live once. Give it everything, do autopilot, let it do everything till it figures it out, and then I just kind of let it go. But that's me. I used to not, but now I'm braver, right? After a while, you trust, and then I'll get burned after a while. But anyways, enough about the CLI. We have coming up a great session on VS Code. All the new stuff in that, whether we're talking about remote permissions or bring your own key. What does that even mean? We're going to find out talking with Justin and VB right now.
Hello, I'm Ritanth. I also go by VB, and I'm a dev on the VS Code team.
Yeah, and my name is Justin. I'm also a software developer on the VS Code team. And this just in, we've got a bunch of new features in VS Code in the last couple of months, and wanted to talk to you guys about some of them today. So yeah, couple things. First of all, the agents window. So you guys might have heard about this, but we've been working on this new agents window. I believe it released a couple weeks ago. But the main thing, one of the main motivations behind this is the chat in the editor, in the sidebar in VS Code. It's been a pretty good thing for the last couple of years, but we noticed that we're getting into a world where we're running multiple agents at the same time, multiple sessions at the same time, even multiple repos, different workspaces, and having just a single chat in the editor is maybe not enough for some people's workflows. And before, because it was so editor-centric, it was built into VS Code itself. You had the editor on the left, you had the chat panel on the right, but you only had you just had that chat widget off to the side. And this editor-centric workflow is kind of, people are writing less and less code nowadays. So now we have this agents window. It's a dedicated top-level surface designed to be agent first. And this is what it looks like. We've got the sessions list off to our side. We have a bunch of different sessions from a couple different of my workspaces here. You can see I have a couple different workspaces here, a couple different sessions. All the icons on the left here mean a couple different things, and I can maybe talk about that a little bit later. We also have our changes and our files over here, so we can go ahead and look over here. We've got all of the files in this current workspace here. If I change it, it'll change to the different files, just like it does in VS Code. And it also does everything that VS Code can do as well. We've got our terminal. I can go ahead and open the terminal here, and I can navigate through this as well. And yeah, so I can also look at any changes that I might have. In this case, I actually don't have any changes, but that's something that we'll be able to see as well. So once again, it's a place for you to basically do everything that you wanted to do in VS Code, but agent first. It's one place to see all the agents that you've kicked off, whether it's remote, whether it's local, whether it's cloud. And because it's chat first, people will stop asking when they accidentally hide the chat panel in VS Code, where did my chat go? It's right here in the center. It's the main citizen in this window. So there are still a couple gaps that we have when it comes to the agents window. And one of them is regarding the loop between the user and with working with agents kind of wherever they want to. So now, I think we released this, I believe it was last week, but the agents window can attach to remote machines over tunnels and SSH, and that's something I wanted to show off here as well. So to kind of peel back the curtain and talk a little bit about on the surface level about how this kind of works. So basically, every agent session is actually driven by a small process called the agent host. And you can see here, I can go ahead and switch this into local agent hosts. And in this case, the agents window here, this is the UI. But behind the scenes, the agent host is the thing that's actually running the model loop, executing tools, or it's the one that owns the workspace and then ultimately streams everything back to the window here. And because AHP, Agent Host Protocol, it's just a protocol, the host doesn't really have to be on the same machine as this window. So it makes the remote story really, really, really clean because we're able to do things like close this window and I can open it up somewhere else. So to kind of show what that looks like, I'm going to go ahead and start off a request. I'll just start with something simple. I'll just say like, hello, GitHub Dev Days. And I'm starting this once again in the local agent host. Cool, great. All good. So you can see here, it creates an isolated work tree. And it says, hey. So you can see here, I have this little radio tower here at the bottom, and it says allow remote session access. So I'll go ahead and click on this. It's going to flash a little bit. Now that it's yellow, that means it's active. And you can see here now, it says remote session access enabled via tunnel. You can see this is what the output looks like. Basically, it created a tunnel that I can connect to on any device now. So I'll go ahead and go over to here. So now I'm over here I'm in Microsoft Edge. I'm on insiders.vscode.dev/agents, and this is just an agents window, but on vscode.dev. And I'm going to go ahead and search for that tunnel that I just opened. And this is just one of the entry points into having a remote session. So you can see now it got connected. I can go through and select a couple folders, and basically this is my entire desktop. I hope I did not leak anything crazy there. Yeah, so this is one of the main entry points. But one of the really cool entry points as well is on mobile. And how that can also work, or I guess one of the other entry points to kind of show off what mobile would look like is with code tunnels here. So I'm going to do code-insiders tunnel. If you're working in VS Code stable, you would end up doing code space tunnel. Either works in this case. I believe this one was already set up. So you can see here, I already have a tunnel name. It's working on this version. I can go ahead and go to this tunnel via this link. Or I can connect it with my phone. So give it a second while I do this cool screen mirroring thing. So this is actually what is on my phone at the moment. I'll go ahead and search for this host. So it's going to search. And cool, it connected to this one, which is the tunnel that I have open over here. I actually don't want this, so I'm going to kill this one for now. Go back over here, and there we go. We connected to our Dev Days tunnel, and you can see now the session is running. Open a new client on that specific channel, and that channel is this here. And what I want to do here is I kind of want to show off. What that looks like if I have both VS Code agents window as well as mobile connected together. So over here, same thing. I can go over here and click on tunnels. In this case, I already have the tunnel connected. So I can click on this Dev Days and have it reconnect. Give that a brief second. And boom, there we go. Both our phone and the MacBook I have here are connected to this. So yeah, so to kind of kick off a session, let's go ahead and go into. You can see here, I'm just kind of casually browsing through all the folders I have here. In this case, I want to be working on this repo. This is a Pokedex app. Fun fact or story, actually. All of my PRs into the public and open source VS Code branch, as well as the previous old private Copilot chat branch, or Copilot chat repo, all of my branch names were Pokemon names. So in order to track this, I created an app that will basically is kind of like a Pokedex, me going through and catching all these little creatures and catching like PRs, I guess. But enough on that. So I'll show this off. Let's go ahead and ask. I cannot type here. No worries. I will type on my phone here. Okay, there we go. Let me reconnect now. Cool, there we go. So I'm going to ask it to launch the application for me. Here we go. Launch this application for me. I cannot type. And I'm not logged in. Let's try that one more time. We'll go to that folder again. It's actually the wrong one. It's OK. Let's pivot a little bit. We'll launch it here. Launch this application for me. Yes, the demo gods really love us today. No worries. So I'll go ahead and show off what remote looks like, maybe just on my phone directly. So unfortunately, maybe you guys won't be able to see this. Testing. Give it a second while it refreshes. And OK, there we go. So it actually ended up working, but you guys didn't get to see it. Let me reconnect here now. Cool. So I fired off this I just said a little hello here, and I sent that from my phone. What it looks like in the application now is, you can see here, this is the one that I fired off from my phone. So once again, from my phone here, I'll try it again. Launch this application. And you can see now, in this agent session, because it's all connected through the same host, it's actually going through and now reading, and you can see it's streaming on both ends. It's streaming here on my phone, but it's also streaming here in this application, or in that window. So if I go through and allow or do any type of permissions check on my phone, it will also show up and end up approving on this side. So you can see here, I'm running in terminal here. I'll go here and hit allow one more time, and it gets allowed. So let's go ahead and let that finish. It wants to do an npm install, but there we go. Because it's a React app, we can do npm start. Starting on port 3000. Let's hope this happens quickly. Looks like there's a little bit of a mismatch. I'll go ahead and allow one more time here. And yeah, while that is cooking, I can kind of talk a little bit about some of the permission modes that we're going to show off down the line as well. OK, yeah, so it looks like we're running into a little issue with the terminal, but no worries. So one thing that you noticed is you can see that I was going through and I had to approve a bunch of things back to back to back. And in an ideal scenario, obviously with remote, if I was doing this and I maybe stepped away from my computer, it would actually be fine because I'd be able to check and maybe be on my phone and hit allow, hit allow, hit allow. But it can get a little tiresome, and there are a lot of times where maybe we trust the agent or we trust the model to be making the correct tool calls or making the correct decisions. OK, so you can see now it actually launched on this local host. Boom, there we go. That works very nicely. But as I was talking about permissions, yeah, so with permission modes that we added here, now there are a couple of different new permission modes that you can go ahead and try out. And we actually released this maybe a month or so ago, but we wanted to kind of clarify what a couple of them meant, because there was a tiny bit of confusion about the differences between default, bypass, and autopilot. Autopilot, which is currently in preview, but will eventually be released and enabled by default in stable on June 1st as it goes out with our UBB changes. But I have a brief thing here that kind of talks about the differences. So to kind of talk about the main differences, so default approvals is probably what most of you guys are seeing here. So in the default approvals mode, there will never be any auto approve unless the settings themselves have been explicitly set. And these settings look like these below here. We have the chat.tools edit auto approve settings, and these are related to the files that can be edited. We have the terminal auto approve that's related to the terminal tools that can be run. We have like some fetch related ones, as well as rules just generally about like when things can be auto approve ignored, when things shouldn't be. So you can kind of search for these by searching for auto approve in the settings. As you can see, that's kind of a lot. What if we just want to blanketly allow everything? And yes, this is a little bit of a dangerous thing, but we have this new thing called bypass approvals. And it's essentially equal to the existing YOLO mode / global auto approve setting that we have. But all tools are automatically approved. It doesn't really care about the settings that you have. So any settings that you previously had set with global auto approve, with terminal commands, with anything like that, it will all be ignored in favor if you have this version or if you have this picker set. It will auto retrigger on certain errors, but it will not automatically retry if you hit your quota limits or if like you're hitting rate limits or any off-topic filters. And the big thing here is it will not answer questions or provide any user input. If it requires some kind of terminal input, it will ask you. If it requires some kind of, if it runs through the ask questions tool, it will ask you. And that's when it will actually pause the response. And that's starkly different from Autopilot, where it's everything that auto approve has, or everything that bypass approval has, but a little bit more as well. So on top of auto replying to your questions, kind of just letting the agent take the wheel, it also has a new thing called the task complete tool. And this is a tool that we added as well as a couple of like system prompt additions, where you can check if the task complete was actually called. And that's when we actually know if the model thinks it's already done. And once again, it will automatically retry on certain errors, and then it will also have an iteration loop if task complete is not found. So it will continue to loop and loop and loop if it thinks that the task isn't found, or if it thinks that the task complete isn't called and that the task isn't done. And another really cool thing here is if you're in plan mode, you can start a session off in plan mode, and it'll automatically hand off to the agent once it's done. And just really quick on a couple of the next steps. So as I mentioned before, it's currently insiders only. It can be enabled by a setting, but once the unit-based billing lands, generally we'll also turn this on in stable. A couple new things in this last release in 1.22 actually is a couple improvements on sandboxing. So previously we were seeing some people run into issues with sandboxing where in the bypass or auto approval modes, it would run a command in sandbox, but then it would see that it would fail and immediately run it again outside of sandbox because it would be automatically approved. So now we have a couple of better improvements where sandbox is now only in default. As I talked about before, some customizations on the iteration loop numbers. If you want the agent to loop 100 times, be my guest. That's something that we're going to work on, where you can force it to loop a certain amount of times or cap it to a certain number. And then a kind of more fun thing, having an option to do a forced tool call at the end, which is code review. That's something to take a look at, as well as something that's more true to, I guess, the term of autopilot, where we have a classifier on each tool call to determine whether or not it's safe to run, instead of just blanketly approving everything. And then the last thing here for a couple next steps is kind of like a goal mode, where instead of using task complete, we're actually giving the model a transcript and saying, hey, take a look at everything that's been run here and determine if the task is done that way. And I guess how that kind of ties into the entire story of us being agent first, as you saw here, I'm going to reconnect here. So it kept asking for approvals, but if I go here and I switch to autopilot, which it will not let me do on my phone, so I will do it here. So on my phone, I'm actually hitting that button. I switched it to autopilot. I hit enable, and you can see here, it actually changed here without me touching it. And I'll go ahead and type something along the lines of, like, maybe I'll do this here. Have that reconnect again. Change all instances of Tom Nook to Nom Tuk. So while that runs, if I had this in default approvals, I'll actually just start up a new session and show off what that looks like in default approvals. Is of to non-took. And we'll kind of see the differences where sometimes it's doing like a grep search or it's doing some kind of string replace. It might actually ask for approvals. Meanwhile, in this autopilot mode, it'll go through, it'll make all the changes. It's doing an npm run build. It did all these changes here without asking me. But in some cases, in default approvals, it will actually ask for approvals. Let's see if that happens. There's a chance it actually doesn't happen. But as you can see here, we went through, it made all these changes, and then it ended up using this task complete tool, and it gives us a little bit of a summary of what actually happened with that task complete. You can see here, it's got that summary of renamed all visible Tomnook references to numtook, and then this is the output. So yeah, kind of working on a couple different things to make this a little bit better in this local agent host as well, where maybe we want this output to actually be streamed out instead of being in this collapsed section. But yeah, you can see here, it's trying to make an edit to package.json, and it thinks it's unsafe. I have a couple confirmations here pending. It also wants to make a change to the package lock. I'll go ahead and allow this and allow this. That wouldn't happen in autopilot, so that's something that can be improved on. And if you want to go ahead and try that out, make sure you are being a little bit safe, and that's what the sandboxing for is in default approvals. But yeah, cool. There we go. It went ahead and worked on both work trees. But yeah, that was just a quick demo on how remote works and how that can tie into some permissions and how the agent window as a whole. And yeah, I guess now we can pass off the VB to talk a little bit about BYOK.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So with what Justin showed, it's kind of evident that VS Code is becoming more sort of a AI-first code editor. And we still want to continue meeting developers where they are. In the sense, we want to let you use the models of your choice with the provider of your choice. Even though GitHub Copilot has many models to do so, we are taking many steps to ensure that VS Code lets you use your model of choice with our agent harness. So I'm going to walk through a few of the different ways we support it today and a few of the different capabilities we've added. First off, I have in front of me VS Code, open with GitHub Copilot not signed in. I'm going to go ahead and open up our manage language models. Ooh. Manage language models view. This is where you would normally see all of your models. There's none over here. But I'm going to go ahead and add the Anthropic provider. Quickly going to switch to get my secret. And paste that in. And now I have all of these models coming straight from Anthropic without signing into Copilot. When you do so and you do it for the first time, you're going to see a notification here. This is a notification to let you know that utility models are not configured. These are models used in the background by various features in VS Code, which involve setting titles to your chat pane, or maybe generating commit messages, renaming things using AI. And you can go ahead and now select a model from your own BYOK models, or bring your own key models to do so. And when I go ahead and ask, what's in this workspace, we're now making a request. Fun tip, you can go ahead and open the chat debug view. This lets you see all the calls being made to the models from VS Code. And over here, you can see that this call was made to API.Anthropic directly, and you can see what was returned. So now you can go ahead in these add models and see all the native providers that are supported. If these are one of the ones you want to use, you can go ahead and set it up. One specific one I would like to point out here is custom endpoint. These are natively supported, where if you put an API key, you'd most probably get all of the models you have in your account. But if you have something custom, like Mistral, for example, let me go ahead and add my API key for that. And you can then select what kind of API the provider supports. Mistral, in this case, supports the chat completions API. Anthropic would support messages, and some support responses. Going to the option, it takes you to a JSON file. This is the chat language models JSON file, which contains configurations for all the custom models that you would add. And you can configure them specifically over here. So I'll copy what I had previously configured for Mistral and paste it right here. And what does it not like? It does not like that quote. You would see various different options available here, like constraining the maximum input tokens allowed or the output tokens you would like to allow, as well as whether you want to enable tool calling, vision, or even thinking. Once you've configured this and close it and save it, you should be able to see Mistral or your custom models show up below that you can select and continue the conversation with. How do I make changes here? It would just continue to do so. This was previously available as OpenAI compatible, which we've deprecated, and will be available in stable in this coming release. The next thing I'd like to point out is third-party extensions. The language model providers is an extensible API, which can be supported by extensions, and if you make your own. I'm going to go ahead and install the Hugging Face provider. I'll trust them and install it. So if I now go back to the Manage Language Models view, I will now see Hugging Face over here, which I can select. I will add Hugging Face's API key to pull the repos I have available over there and see them below. Now, Hugging Face comes with a lot of models, and you don't really want to see all of them in the picker. So you can toggle visibility and just select the one you want to see. I'd like to just see Minimax. And go ahead and open the picker here. And I see Hugging Face over here. And then I can go ahead and use it. The few things I've shown over here have happened completely without signing in to Copilot. So in a sense, you could have a local model running on your machine, like with LM Studio, and use this on a plane, or maybe in an air-capped environment if you'd like. And the last thing is everything you've seen here will be available in the agents window as well. I'm going to then hand it back to Justin.
Yeah, cool. So I thank you guys all so much for tuning in today. We have a lot of documentation about everything that we talked about just now, code.visualstudio.com/docs. If you want to read more about BYOK, if you want to read more about permissions, as well as the agents window and remote. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us on X, I believe x.com/code. And once again, if you have any issues, you can find us on github.com/microsoft/vscode/issues, file an issue. We'll definitely see it. It'll get assigned to the right person. And yeah, once again, thank you guys for tuning in, and hope to see you guys soon.
Great. Thank you, Justin and VB. That was a great session. I have to say, you all change VS Code so often, it's really hard to keep up. So great job there. It's actually, makes things fun and challenging. So I do have a couple, as I was watching your session, I have a couple of questions. First, Justin, with Autopilot, am I being dumb by keeping it on all the time? I mean, I was in VS Code and I just have it on. I mean, I mentioned in the last session, I mean, how bad is it if we do just keep it on all the time? I mean, am I really asking for trouble?
I mean, I think generally we're at a point where models are actually quite good, where it's not going to do something like rm-rf. Like maybe I've seen a Reddit or a Next post about it before, but I believe that models are generally safe enough nowadays where Autopilot will actually, like once again, it will do some kind of checking at the end, making sure that it did the right thing and that the task was complete. So I think it's safe. Obviously, use it at your own risk, and it could run a lot of credits or a lot of token usage. But I believe I mean, I keep it on all the time, and it's been working very nicely for me as well.
Cool. Yeah, we won't hold you to that. That completely safe. But yeah, use it at your own risk. That's definitely it. And BB, let me ask you real quickly about the bring your own key, because that's really interesting when you have local models running, because that's running on your own machine, right? So you're not actually spinning up anything in the cloud and getting billed for it. Would that be correct?
Yes, so if you use LM Studio and you have a beefy enough machine, I wanted to demo it, but my computer is not powerful enough to run a local model. But if you're lucky, one of those with a graphics card and you will be able to just run it yourself and not get billed by a provider, but get billed with your electricity usage.
That's awesome. I mean, that's actually really cool to be able to do and just be able to pick exactly what you want. So. Great, thank you very much, guys. That was a great session. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate it. So up next, we are going to be talking with Wendy about one of my favorite IDEs, the venerable Visual Studio. I'm a .NET developer, and I lived in Visual Studio. I still do live in it. So let's find out what Visual Studio has for us with Copilot. All right, I will keep on talking. All right, so one of the things I wanted to show off from before that I didn't get a chance with, if we can get my screen brought up, is the awesome Copilot website. And so one of the things you can do is you can go to awesome-copilot.github.com. And so you can see from there a bunch of instructions, custom agents, skills, and so on. And I'll just kind of talk through these in general. And so we'll talk about instructions, because custom instructions are one of the, I guess, the oldest ways to customize what the AI returns to you, or what the AI that Copilot uses to return to you to help out. So let's say, and I'm just looking at one, or for my Astro site that I was using before. All right, here we go. So what my Astro site was using before, and these are instructions, and this is actually the awesome GitHub Copilot website, awesome-copilot.github.com. These are all community contributed, right? And there's a lot of them, like 200, 300, 185. I can't do the math, but there is a lot. And so what instructions do, let me just search for Astro instruction, and we'll render it so it's a little bit prettier. And so what this does is that it tells Copilot that we are within an Astro project, and that this is what you should be doing. It's not, the model knows a lot about a lot of different things. And so this is kind of like tuning it down and giving it overall instructions. Like in your component design, follow these rules. For content collections, follow those rules, and so on. So there's a lot to it, but it's giving Copilot more or less guardrails as it generates the output. So those are instructions. But there's also things called agents. And so let's look at the .NET Self-Learning Architect. I'll read this too. So what an agent does is that you can actually go in to an agent mode itself, and then what you're doing is you're essentially giving Copilot a personality. And it's going to have all these essentially instructions, but only when you're running in agent mode. So you would do /agent in the CLI, and let me see if I can pick this up. So I could do /agent, and excuse me, but if I had any installed here, I could then pick it. And so if I had .NET Self-Learning Architect, it becomes the .NET Self-Learning Architect and is acting according to this itself. And then there's also skills, and skills are really cool in that skills give you both instructions. Let's pull one down, like maybe, sure, Apple App Store Reviewer. So skills give you, again, instructions on things to run, but They also have, and it might be easier if I actually go out to the repo itself, but we're running short on time. Skills also give you things such as like a Python file to run. So let's say this Adobe Illustrator scripting. Nice. And so what this is going to do is that it could be, when we're writing these JSX files, it's going to have example JSX files in it, a template for it to follow, and stuff like that. So it's actually really, really cool and really powerful in that it's giving Copilot's AI even more specific instructions to follow. All right, Awesome Copilot, aka.ms/awesome-copilot. You'll be able to find it. And now let's talk about Visual Studio and Copilot in it. Wendy, take it over.
Thank you so much, Matt. Hello, I'm Wendy Briding. I am a product manager on the .NET team, and today I am excited to talk to you about the cool things that Copilot in Visual Studio 2026 provides. Visual Studio 2026 works with you to enhance your workflows. So whether you are planning, building, testing, optimizing, reviewing, deploying, or even modernizing your code, Copilot in Visual Studio 2026 provides you with an extra set of tools that makes it easier and faster for you to get what you need to get done. One slide, I'm going to dive right into Visual Studio and start showing off a lot of the really great things that we have. Now, I'm in an internal version of a preview version of Visual Studio. So these are all things that are coming within the next month in the June release of Visual Studio. So if you have the stable release of Visual Studio, some of these things are not available quite yet, but they are coming in the very next release. So I wanted to really show off a lot of what's up and new and coming to make your life even easier if you're already using Copilot. One of the things I wanted to point out here is this agent preview. So you're probably using agent mode quite regularly, but we are adding agent preview. This is going to be our new harness that is going to take advantage of all of this Copilot CLI SDK that is being developed. So all of those features that you saw in the CLI earlier this morning are now going to be coming to Visual Studio as soon as they hit the CLI SDK, which is amazing. Lots of really great stuff. Also, you just saw in VS Code their bypass and autopilot mode. These are also coming to Visual Studio, so you'll be able to have all of that great feature as well. The model picker here provides you with lots of really great information about which models you can use. There's going to be notifications on the cost, how many credits that they will use. I'm going to stick with GPT-5.4 today, but most of the stuff that I'm working on is going to be able to be used across any of your favorite models, whatever you prefer, including the bring your own key stuff that was shown in VS Code, also going to be available in Visual Studio. Some of the really cool things, the first thing I'm going to start, this is our tool picker. Lots of changes where you can turn on and off which tools you want to have available, down to even which ones you want to include. We also have a skills picker. We just heard a lot about the skills Matt was talking about, and I know they were mentioned in the previous ones. Here this lists all the skills that I have installed, and you can turn them on or off. You can also come in here and edit them directly. So it brings up the MD file that describes this, this skill that you're asking to. This one is the one I'm going to use right now. Here, this skill walks it through on how I like it to code review. So yes, we have lots of great code review options. I'm very picky about how my code reviews should be done. I walk it through the steps that I want it to follow, how I want it to present the results at the end, giving it the format that I want to see things in. And most importantly, I wanted to make sure that it does things in a little bit safer way by doing a parallel analysis with multiple models. So I have included in my, at the bottom here of my skill that I want it to jump off and fire off 2 separate reviews at one time, and then bring that together with an analysis. So my first prompt here, I'm just going to paste in. I had just finished a feature that allows for, I'm an eShop. I want the users to be able to add items to their cart even when they're not logged in. Of course, that brings in some complexity where I had to, if they had a cart already in their logged in version, when they go to checkout, it needs to combine those. So it's a little bit complicated. So I'm going to ask it to go do that code review. And so it's going to think for a second here. And then the first thing we should see it do is kind of say, OK, I need to check out that code review skill. There we go. It has recognized that skill, and it's reviewing it, and then it's going to fire off a bunch of stuff. Now, another great thing about the new Copilot in Visual Studio is that's off and running. I don't want to just sit here and watch it, because a code review is going to take a while. It's got to go get all the diffs and understand, run tests, make sure, do all the things that you would do when you're code reviewing. And I don't want to sit here and watch that, and you don't want to sit here and watch that. So we're going to go out, and I'm going to show you this session manager. This shows you all of the Copilot sessions that you've got. These are ones that I've run in the past. That's the active one that is running. I'm going to go ahead and kick off a new one. So I've got a code review going on of my last work. And now, so that you don't see me have to watch me type, I'm going to bring up my next prompt. For this one, I am going to use the amazing plan mode that just released in Visual Studio Copilot. So this one, I'm code reviewing my last change. I need to plan my next change. So I just implemented this new feature, but I realized I didn't do it in the chat mode. And so if a user is chatting with our AI chatbot in eShop and the chatbot wants to add an item to the cart, if they're not logged in, it's going to not do it for them. So we need to get that anonymous cart adding in the chat. And so I'm in plan mode. I'm in interactive here. I could switch to bypass or autopilot, but I'm going to keep it in interactive for now. And I'm going to fire that one off. So that one's going to think, going to reference all the things it needs to reference, and get going. Let's go check on our code review, see how that's going. Wants to access a few files here, so let's confirm those so it can keep going. When you have multiple things going, it's probably better to switch to bypass or autopilot mode, but I'm token conscious kind of person, and I like to watch what it's doing and stop it if it starts to go off the rails. So I'm more of a watch it kind of person. Everybody has their way of doing things, and that's great. That's why we have these options. It's amazing. So that one's still running, inspecting. It's now kicking off those two independent reviews in parallel, grabbing one Claude model and one GPT model so that it can synthesize across those. And those reviews have been kicked off in parallel tasks, which is amazing. Let's go check on our plan. Lots of reviews happening, going through, and it accessed all the code that I changed, doing git diffs and everything from it, because I have committed up to a branch that I'm working on. Most of the changes are not still just locally, so it had to go out and look through and find and understand. It's now come up with a plan here. And so looking through, found that it needs to make changes to the basket state, some changes to the TypeScript and some test files, so it's pretty comprehensive. I don't think I have anything here, so I'm going to say finalize this plan, no changes. And so it's going to go now and create a plan document, an MD file that I can save and review, or I can start implementation on. So here it's created that plan. I can open it directly from here. Really good description of the steps it needs to take, and then there's a button right there for it to start implementing. I'm not going to watch you implement. You've all seen it implement good code. We don't need to go through that. Before I kick off my next one, let's go check on our code review and see how that's going. Some more files it wants to have access to. while that is going on, the next thing I want to do is show you this really life-changing thing for me that I found. I'm going to start off another chat. So how many times have you been sitting around discussing in a meeting this great feature? Amazing. You're recording the meeting's got basically laid out all the requirements and everything you need to do for this feature. And then you have to go back and you have to write up exactly what you all just talked about in that meeting. Instead of that now, there is this amazing thing. I'm going to switch back to this agent preview. And I'm going to ask it to use my WorkIQ tool and get the transcripts from this amazing meeting that we had that planned out the changes that we need to be done. And I'm asking it to create the plan that is needed to make the changes based on that conversation. And so now I no longer have to go find the transcript or rewatch the meeting or try to remember what happened. It's all going to go out and grab that information from the Teams call, get the transcript. And so it's here, it's getting WorkIQ access approved. So this, the first thing it has to do is, do I approve it to do this? Absolutely. And now it's going to start planning those changes. It's going to review through the transcript, make sure it understands everything that's been talked about. This was a multi-session meeting, so we've had 3 discussions through this meeting, so it's going to go through the transcripts of all 3 of those meetings, and it is going to formulate this amazing plan on how to make the changes to the site happen. Let's go back and check on our code review. All right, it's been doing a lot of stuff, reading, checking things, understanding the diffs, multiple agents running at the same time, trying to understand and review this code to make sure that it is going to provide me with the best information that it possibly can on how I can get this code ready for production. The 2 parallel code reviews are still running, it's saying. And so it's going to continue waiting for those results. So we'll come back to our WorkIQ and reviewing the transcripts and coming up with that amazing plan. Some of the things that I'm not going to have time to be able to show you that I wanted to make sure we have an extra I wanted to mention. I said we have a lot of great things no matter what you're doing in Visual Studio. The debugger agent and the profiler agent provide you with the easiest ways. Profilers, I've heard a lot of people say profiler is so hard to understand. I don't know how to profile. I know it's important, but I don't know how to use it. This profiler agent makes it so easy for you to understand what you need to do, profiling your code, and provides you with the changes that you need to make your applications so much better. You're running into bugs, the debugger mode will help you with your breakpoints and all of the things that you need to do to find out where the bugs are happening and what's going on there. All amazing things. And then if you're using some code that's not quite as up to date, you're not on .NET 10 yet, Modernize provides you with an easy way to get your applications up to the latest, whether you're in .NET Framework and you need to go to .NET Core, or you're just a version or 2 behind. The Modernize agent will really help you bring up. It's going to provide you with a plan, what it needs to do to get there so that you can feel comfortable in making that move, and you can make it piecemeal or all at once at your comfort level. That modernization agent provides you with lots of great features there. So that one is still working. And that one is still working. And so I'm going to kick off one more. Oh my gosh, 3 at one time. But you know, we can do that these days because it's not taking my brain power, it's taking the LLM's brain power. And I'm going to show off the test agent. The test agent helps you to get your code up to a more code coverage than what you have currently, making sure that it is covering the most important code that you have, not implementing tests on things that don't need to be tested, but on the important things. So I go into the test agent here, and I provide it with what scope do I want it to provide coverage for. Now, my changes that I made were in the web app project, and so I'm just going to say pound web app, and I'm going to select that web app.cs proj. And so it's saying scope the test generation down to that web app project. I don't need to add coverage to the whole thing. I didn't make changes to the whole thing, just that scope. And so this is going to, it understands the scope, and it's going to kick off and generate tests. This can be quite long running, depending on how your coverage is. But the first thing it's going to do is it's going to assess your coverage, right? It's going to have to run your tests and do a code coverage analysis and understand where those gaps are. And then it's got to review your code so that it understands what are those important lines of code that need to have coverage, where the gaps are. And so it goes through and does all of that, generates a whole bunch of tests, and I'm going to let that one run while it's going again, while we go back and check on how our others are doing. And this is kind of the flow that I have going on a regular basis. I have a code review going of my last change. I got a plan going on my next change. And then I am starting development on the one that I previously planned. And so lots of things all going at once. Everybody has their different styles of the way they're doing things. This one is still working on it. How is our work IQ? Still analyzing those transcripts. When you're live streaming, everything takes longer. These yesterday took me 5 minutes to get this plan. The code review takes a little bit longer because of the reconciliation. That one takes about 10-15 minutes. The test generation one does take a lot longer. That one took about 20-25 minutes to run. But with this one, yesterday it generated 161 tests across 21 files. It is already started. If I go over to my Git changes, we can see that it is already, we can watch it add tests as it goes. It is currently generating unit tests for, looks like 4 files it's identified don't have good coverage in our output here, continuing to work through and add things. Now we can go back. Yeah, generating unit tests for our order status changed, our product image provider, all of the different things that we had some gaps in our knowledge there. Coverage for the tests, which amazing, because who likes to write unit tests? We want to create new features, not write tests. And this now does it for us. And at any level that we need. This one I'm doing at project level. I could do the whole solution level. I could do it on just a file or a method. It provides all of those options depending on the scope that you are looking to offer. So lots of great options with this test agent. As that's working, let's see how we're doing here. I'm wondering if this one got stuck. So it doesn't seem to be. Sometimes Copilot gets stuck, especially when you got multiple things going at one time. Even when I'm using the CLI, I find that sometimes I have to give an agent a kick in the pants to get it going back again. Other times it's moving along, and we're all good. That one seems to be still running. And here it's generated some tests. It's now performing a build to make sure that it found no errors or sees if it has anything. See, we've got new files that were added. So it's working away on making those changes. I can go back to my this one. I can get out of plan mode. I can ask it to implement. It's going to follow the plan specifically at how I had asked it to. I could go in here and make changes, but it said this plan looks great. That's exactly the changes that I would need to make. And I love the fact that it thought about the tests that needed to be added that go along with that change. And so lots of great things going on there. It's finished its tests on this one. It is still, now it's added on another one, so it's adding more chat state tests. Our work IQ. I wish this one would finish. In fact, because this one's still running long, I'm going to show you what it did yesterday. So this one, it mapped out the work IQ for the session for all of those meetings that we had to talk about what changes we needed to make. It created the plan. I can open the plan here. It describes the problem that was discussed and how we can use that to make this product even better. And so then it suggests an approach. It describes the plan steps on how it can align the Aspire SDK versions and remove design time build noise, make onboarding and repo prerequisites accurate and explicit, all the changes that need to be made based on the conversations that we had. And then I can just dive right in and say, implement this plan, and no extra work from meeting to making the work happen. This particular work IQ tool has been a lifesaver for me because I sit as a product manager, I sit in the meetings all the time, and I used to have to go back and then translate all of those conversations into a spec. With Copilot and Work IQ, I no longer have to do that. It's created that spec for me. I can have the team review this before implementing, making sure that we're all aligned and that it got everything correct as we discussed in the meeting, and just I can send it off implementing, which is absolutely amazing, game changer. From the code review perspective, since that one is not finishing, I can do the baking show change here and show. It went through and it reviewed with 2 different models, and it is providing me in the format that I have asked it to what changes need to be made before I should feel comfortable with moving this change into production. So it has outlined there are some reliability issues that I might want to look into with regard. It's pointed out the lines that are of code that are impacted and what is the recommended fix. I had it look at very specific things around thread safety and security and test coverage, things that are all very important to me. It says from those perspectives, those are good. It puts a green check mark. Then there are some suggestions. These aren't absolutely necessary, but I suggest you look at these when you're looking at, clearing browser carts and all of that. There's some improvements there. And then it summarizes all of that into here are your critical fixes that you need to make. There is a little test gap, which I'm covering with my test generation, and the recommended changes that we need to make before merge. So really easy, great code review before I even send it out to my the rest of my team to code review. Keep things a lot less burdensome on the team, makes their code reviews a lot simpler because I have taken the time to do this multi-step code review for myself. I can make those changes. It makes my code a lot better before I go out and ask my team to spend time looking and reviewing through it, which I love because nobody wants their time wasted. All right. And so it has finished making those changes to the chat app to do based on the plan. All of that, it's got 2 files that it updated plus that plan. All of that is complete. My tests are still working. If I look over at my Git changes, our list of added files is growing. We've now got 5 added files. As I said, when this completed yesterday, it was up to, I think, 14 files added. So lots of good. It will do a test run. It builds and tests everything to make sure that it's leaving you in a good state with all passing tests before it finishes. So amazing test agent. And that is all I've got for today. These are going to keep running in the background. I'm on a dev box, so they can keep running as I wrap things up, which is also an amazing thing if you're not on a dev box. This allows for me to shut my laptop and keep things going in the background there, and everything is fabulous. These features, the new CLI agent, the bypass and autopilot mode, all of these things are coming in mid-June in Visual Studio. And so thank you for watching, and back to you, Matt.
All right, thank you, Wendy. That was a great session. I love hearing about how far Visual Studio has come with Copilot. Let's talk about how great WorkIQ is. Isn't it so awesome?
Amazing. I love it. It's been a life changer.
It totally has. I use it outside of coding. I built myself like a little a personal assistant, and like so every time I have meetings, I have fill me in on this meeting. Write some notes for me so I don't forget. That way, next time I pop in the meeting with somebody, I have these notes both from the meeting and like some outside of Teams chats. Like gives you this whole context of the world put together.
I had a long weekend. My kids had Friday and Tuesday off, and so I took the time off with them to watch my son play soccer. And so when I got back, this morning, first thing I did was use WorkIQ to say, what did I miss? What do I need to know before I head into all of my meetings for the day? Absolutely amazing. I did that in the CLI, but I could do it in Visual Studio or in VS Code, wherever I feel most comfortable. I move across them all the time, but y'all can be wherever you're comfortable.
Yep, yeah, it's so cool. And you mentioned it's available everywhere. It's an MCP server that runs with some skills. Okay, so you did mention a couple things I do want to get into about Visual Studio specifically, and you kind of went a little bit fast on them, but the profiler and debugging, those two specifically are so great, the experience within Visual Studio. I mean, It's just actually mind-blowing, because you're right, I had no idea how to use a profiler, so I never used it. And so now that it's there, it's like, well, this is so useful, and this is so wonderful.
Yes, and I know there's going to be some great videos coming out in the next week or so on those specifically, which is why I didn't dive into them today. But yeah, they are incredible. There's some blog posts on them. There are some videos out there about how to use them. And so absolutely, give them a try. They will change your life if you haven't tried them before.
Yeah, they are wonderful, and it's these great toolings of Visual Studio that you might not know how to use, but yeah, the Copilot makes it so much easier.
Yep.
And now you can use Visual Studio to its full capabilities, and it's so capable. So great. Well, thank you very much, Wendy. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and so love talking about Visual Studio. So next up, we are going to get into one pretty cool session. Ian is going to come in, and we're going to run a workshop where we're going to be able to get our hands dirty with Copilot, right? So we're going to take some code from beginning and run it all the way through the end. So Ian's going to take step by step through it, and I am going to do my best to ask questions, pretending I'm the audience in the workshop itself. Like, I'm going to say, hey, Ian, I don't understand this. And so we can dig deeper on certain concepts as we go. So I really can't wait to do it, because you know what? I don't even know what this workshop's about. So I am coming into it fresh and new. But all this workshop is from our previous VS Code Dev Days, the total set that I put up the link for before, gh.io/all-the-stuff. I hope I made that easy. But anyways, we'll put it up in the show notes as well after this. And so you can actually go down and get the workshop. I'm sure Ian will put it up too. And that way, you can run along with us, or run along after too. So Ian, welcome.
Hi, so excited to be with you all. I'm Ian, and I'm really excited about this workshop because I think it's such a great starting project to understand all the cool possibilities that Copilot can unlock for you as a developer as you start to try to get into agentic development. So specifically today, we're going to be on this project called Mayhem. We're going to be building a retro arcade game because who doesn't like retro? It's always cool. And we're going to be building a competition or a workflow where we're going to be able to take in 2 GitHub handles and run a competition or a race of some sorts, and there will be a winner, the one who has had the most contributions in the past year. So I believe we have this link, and it is going to pop up on the screen for you. Feel free to follow along if you would like, but we will move a little fast since we have 45 minutes. So I also suggest to go back in your free time, go through all the steps, read all the cool tips and tricks that are included in this workshop. There is a lot to be extracted as practical tools and things to add to your tool belt that you can eventually start utilizing in your own workflows. So let's go ahead and get started with the CLI workshop. One more thing, there is also a VS Code track. You can toggle to it over here in the top. We're going to be sticking with the CLI, but once again, depending on where you're most comfortable with, how you like to work, both options are there for you. Before you begin, there are some prerequisites: having a GitHub Copilot subscription enabled on your account, Node.js installed, Git installed, so on and so forth, some of those basic criteria. What we hope to be able to cover today is context engineering, teaching Copilot about the code base, instructions, references, and clear constraints. And this is really cool and interesting because this is ultimately what helps your agents work better for you, help them learn more about your project. We're going to be writing plans before implementation, and then we're going to be using agents to reference those plans to get hopefully some pretty cool results out of the door with minimal back and forth. And then finally, some iterative design, some banter with Copilot, if I might say, and we're just going to try to make our app a little bit cooler. And finally, if we have time, a little bit of a bonus, we'll go into some parallel workflows. I know Matt, when he was kicking off the live stream, he was talking about fleet mode, so I really hope we get there. One of my favorite features about Copilot. So let's go ahead and dive in. There is a repo which we can start with. So once you open that up, click on Use this template, create a new repository, and choose yourself as the owner. And I believe they suggested you name it like Mona Mayhem. I've already, and yeah, perhaps with better spelling, I've already done this over here. And what we'll do now is clone this locally so we have something to work with. So there we go, I've cloned it. Let's open up my shell, git clone, and let me do a bit of a split screen so you're able to see both sides of the world. Like I mentioned earlier, you do need Node installed and GitHub Copilot CLI. You can use npm install to install it. We're going to be going past this, but again, all of this is here for reference if you would like to run through it later. Let's go ahead and launch up our application, at least the scaffolding, to make sure that everything is running as it should. And there is, oh yeah, I need to actually go into my project. That would be helpful, wouldn't it?
So Ian, what I did really quick here while you were talking is I actually created a short link, just so I had it. It's gh.io/Mona-Mayhem, and that'll bring us to what you're going after right now. So you can actually follow along with everything.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, please do follow along. You'll be able to read all the different commands, copy paste them, do whatever you need to do. It is a great way to get hands-on and learn a lot more at least I learn a lot better when I'm hands-on and actively involved with a workshop or with any specific task.
And that is gh.io/mona-mayhem. Mona Mayhem.
Awesome.
Ian, give us some mayhem.
Awesome. So we have our application up and running. It's a very simple scaffolding, but our goal is to make this into something really cool and interesting. So we're going to leave this running so we can hopefully see changes in real time as we make them. I'm going to open up another terminal, and in this one, I'm going to actually open up Copilot in interactive mode. And there should be a cool little graphic pop up which tells us that Copilot is ready to work. And hopefully it does that. There we go. And if you are opening Copilot for the first time, you will need to log in and authenticate, just so your subscription is active and you're ready to go. So now into the context part. We're now moving into the world where AI usage and tracking AI usage has become a big deal. And the cost of using AI can quickly add up over time. So the goal is to create artifacts, create instructions that AI is able to reference so it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel over and over again. And one way to do that is to generate some initial workspace instructions. And these initial workspace instructions are a great place where Copilot is automatically able to put in important information which it can use to generate files, to run your program, whatever it needs to do, but you can also add other things in there. For example, you can create instructions for design schema, or if there's certain things that Copilot should always do, or certain things that Copilot should never do. All of this becomes like a grounding document, which is Copilot's instruction booklet on how to work alongside you and how to work alongside your repo in the best possible manner to avoid those unintended consequences that sometimes famously make it onto the news nowadays. So really, really important that you create good documentation along the way. So it is currently creating the instructions for us, and we can actually also go ahead and open it up and take a look at what it generated. Copilot instructions. Let's make it look pretty. So we can see a general architecture layout, some conventions, real basic boilerplate stuff. Nothing too out of this world yet, but again, this is something that you can keep adding on to as we go on. In addition, you have access to tons and tons of models. If you're on the free plan or just getting started, you'll have access to Haiku and GPT-5 Mini, or I believe GPT-5 Mini, one of those two. Those are also great places to get started. For the sake of this lab, this workshop, I'm going to be using Sonnet 4.5, just so that way we can keep things moving along for the sake of time. And I will also enable YOLO mode because it's a workshop. We don't want to be sitting down and pressing enter every few seconds to give it permission. But of course, if you're in an actual production environment, proceed with caution. Those permissions are really important, again, to avoid those newsworthy mistakes that sometimes pop up.
Big fan of YOLO mode.
I know, I love it. Before YOLO mode, I was like losing my mind. I was like, I'd rather just do it myself. All right. So now we can really start to dive into this project. We can ask questions such as give an overview of this project. Or one of my favorite things, once again, when we talk about token optimization, our goal is to be as specific as possible. We can actually reference specific pages, or we can even copy and paste images into the CLI directly as we're talking with Copilot, which is one of my favorite things to do because at least when we're dealing with the UI, and perhaps we'll see that a little bit later today, if something just looks off, I just snipping tool it, paste it in, and I'm like, hey, Copilot, let's fix this. but yeah, I think we are ready to go forward. Matt, any comments, any questions, anything that you think is worth highlighting here?
No, I mean, I really like what we're up to. One of the things that I think was really valuable is when we generated the overall instructions for the repo, and it's done with the slash command of init, which you ran a bit ago, and that kind of just sets the stage overall of what we need, or what the. I was talking about that when I was mentioning Awesome Copilot before, and there's a whole bunch of various instruction files for that, but this scans the repo and kind of makes it overall very tied to the repo as well. So yeah, that's actually a very powerful thing, and something that you might want to do when you're first starting out with a brand new repo is kind of say, you know what, Copilot, take a look at this, and then it's going to generate that copilot-instructions.md and make it its responses tailored for what you're dealing with. So that was a very long answer, Ian, to what I found interesting.
Well, I'm glad actually you said that, because it reminded me of one more thing I wanted to mention, which is there's instructions, and then there's, I'm forgetting the word, not custom agents, skills. There it is. So there's a difference between instructions and skills, where instructions are always referenced, whereas skills are pulled dynamically. So for example, you might have a skill specifically for running unit tests, or you might have a skill for accessibility, which goes through your application and makes sure that the specific accessible requirements are being followed. So that's another thing. I don't think we'll get to it in this workshop, but it's another method of creating documentation, creating artifacts, which help Copilot, which help your agents work in a better manner for you. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's now move ahead to planning and scaffolding. One of the most powerful tools we have with us now is the ability to create plans. And the reason I say that is because AI is really good at getting things done, but it's also really good at being creative. So if you give it just a 2-sentence description of, hey, do this, it'll probably do it, but it may not be in the way that you really wanted it to manifest in. So plan mode is really powerful. It will essentially develop an engineering document that can be passed along to Copilot so you can have more of an expected outcome. And when there are ambiguities, Copilot comes back to us to ask us questions. So in this case, we have, what caching strategy would you prefer? Let's just say no caching. Let's keep it simple. And once it, okay, and what timeout should we use for the API fetch request? 30 seconds. It really doesn't matter at this point. How should the API response be formatted? We'll return it as is. We're going to keep it simple. We're not going to add anything fancy yet. And I believe that may have been the last question. So now it's going to generate that plan for us. And the original prompt, I should probably review that. It was I need to build a server-side API proxy that fetches GitHub contribution data for any username. We pass it the endpoint, and what does it return? It returns a JSON. We need to bypass some restrictions. Copilot, can you help us plan the implementation, including the route structure, error handling, and caching strategy? Okay, so here is our plan. It created an artifact. For the sake of time, we're not going to open it up, but you can access the artifact. You can work with Copilot to make changes to the plan itself. And what we're going to do, we're going to say it looks all great. Once again, in production, spend some more time on this, but looks all great. And we're going to build on autopilot. Oops. We're going to build on autopilot. And autopilot's really cool because I can take a step out of the room, go get a snack, grab some lunch, and usually by the time I come back, it'll be done. Autopilot is different from YOLO mode. YOLO mode works specifically in the context of one conversation, whereas autopilot works a lot more like a developer iterating through a task, running tests, verifying the results. So it is a lot more powerful, but at the same time, again, use it responsibly. That is one recurring theme you'll probably hear me say a million times, and perhaps you've already heard throughout Dev Days, is use all these tools responsibly. Very, very powerful, but a lot can come along with it.
I think one of the things that for Autopilot too that we have to be careful of is that it will chew up your tokens because it's going to go through and spin until it figures out what it thinks is the best end state. So you do kind of want to watch it as well. I mean, if you're on a smaller model, if you're on one of the .many models, that's probably cool. But pay some attention to it if you're cost constrained, so it doesn't eat everything up. So yeah, but it's cool. I love Autopilot, and I love myself some YOLO mode because I just let it go. So YOLO mode approves all the tool calls for you. Like, so if you want to if it needs to hit the terminal for any reason, so if Autopilot needs to go out and call the terminal for some reason, YOLO mode allows that. So you don't have to actually say, yeah, it's cool, you can do that. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as this thing spins along, you can see that it is going. One other thing is when you transition from plan mode, it did also change the bottom color as well. When you said, hey, I'm going to go to autopilot mode, it changed that. So it actually lets you know that the mode overall has changed too.
Yes, yeah, and for plan mode, for instance, it was blue, and then for autopilot, green. So yeah,
Yep.
many signals to send to communicate to you what's going on. And you can always use the slash commands. So for plan mode, for instance, you can use /plan, or you can use Shift-Tab to toggle through the modes. So they both do exactly the same thing, just really whatever method rocks your boat. So we can see it finished running. We have task complete. We have implementation highlights. It also ran some tests to verify, but we're going to test ourselves as well. So the cool thing about being in the interactive mode is if you use an exclamation point, you can then interact directly with the shell without having to exit or open a new terminal. So in this case, we do see that this curl command worked. We're able to pull data, and everything looks to be A-OK so far. So let's go back to plan mode, and now we are going to focus on pulling some more of the functionality together. Specifically, we're asking Copilot now I need the main page, plan a battle page for Mona Mayhem, GitHub contribution battle arena. Wow, that sounds so cool. I'd prefer this any day to any kind of sports match or football or the Super Bowl, if I'm honest. And we pass in 2 username inputs. There's a battle button, a results area. We're telling it to keep the UI simple. Don't over-engineer the layout. And this is really important because this workshop was created a few months back, and we have seen AI has become that much more of a go-getter. So it's become a lot more common for AI to progress ahead and do things which it thinks are right. And sometimes they work out pretty well, but sometimes you might actually end up backtracking. So again, looking at token usage, efficiency, those are all things that matter. So how should the battle winner be determined? Total contributions, who has more overall? So that was an ambiguity that we needed to answer for Copilot. What should the results area display after each battle? Side-by-side comparison with contribution graphs. Yeah, that sounds great. So it's going to think through where should the battle logic execute, client side, server side, progressive enhancement. We're going to say client side. Keep it simple. And the thing about this is I've done this workshop a few dozen times now. Every time it's slightly different. Again, it's just one of those things, depending on the model you're using, depending on the nuances beforehand, it does do slightly different things. So I'm in this with you. I actually do not know what's going to come out the other end. But again, I think that's one of the things about AI which makes it just that much more fun. It's almost like solving a puzzle. It's it's just interesting.
And actually, that's one of the reasons why human in the middle, or HITM, you might see that abbreviated sometimes, is so important, because these models are non-deterministic. And so the output from them is completely different every single time. And and that's why maybe the rubber duck feature too is so good, because you have one model evaluating the output of another model to kind of narrow it down as well. And why some like the Copilot instructions and the skills are handy as well, because you're now more or less giving the AI, whatever model Copilot is running, more tailored kind of guardrails on the output that it can generate. But still, it's going to be different every single time, no matter how much you still kind of fine-tune it and narrow it down. And so the human in the middle, you are still responsible for what it outputs, right? If I'm your manager, Ian, and you come out with something that's iffy, you can't blame the AI for it. You took responsibility for it, and that's where a lot of people are talking about taste these days as well. I mean, what's good, what's not good, and yeah, so I mean,
Absolutely.
It's fun. It definitely is fun to see what it comes up with, but yeah, we're in charge ultimately.
Yeah, and I really like the rubber duck feature, and sometimes I find myself hopping between models, and I think the power of being able to have one model review another model's work has become really powerful, because each one comes in with a slightly different approach, a different lens almost, as if it was a different person. It almost is a different person, if I may say so. So I think it's a really important resource to actually be able to switch models very easily and retain that context as well. So don't get stuck to one model. I know when AI first came out, I was in college and there was really no concept of models, but it's really, really powerful to be able to switch between models in your workflows, have different models bounce around. And actually, if you use auto, the auto model, you will actually get a 10% discount, and it'll pick the right model depending on the task. It'll use lighter weight models for maybe planning and heavier weight models for debugging, so on and so forth. Okay, so it finished implementing the plan. Or nope, it finished implementing, now it's testing, but perhaps if we go ahead and navigate over, we see there is a simple UI. So I can put in my Git username, Octocat, battle, and yeah, it looks like the functionality is working. We didn't actually tell it to wire up the battle button, but again, this is one of those places where the agents go above and beyond, and they are able to infer what we may want, and with pretty good accuracy most of the time. So everything looks good. According to the lab, you should now see the game title, 2 username input fields, a battle button. The battle won't work yet. It works, no complaints. So let's continue to wiring up our project. So some of the more specific implementation details, so when the battle button gets clicked, both usernames from the inputs, gets both usernames from the inputs. So that's working, validating that both are filled, and so some basic error handling. So let's do that. Okay, so it's not very helpful, but it is saying that there is an error with player 1, and maybe if I leave it empty, okay, so it doesn't even let me press the battle button. So I think that's that's an area we could improve. Fetches the contribution data in parallel, does great. One interesting thing is, in the plan, it actually asked us what it should display, and we had chosen that we wanted to visualize the contribution graphs. But it seems like there's an issue, because when we do run the battle, everything seems to be working, but the contribution graph, there's a label, but it doesn't seem to be rendering properly. So that's something that we'll have to go back to figure out and debug. So let's actually now go back to our Copilot and tell it the contribution graph is not showing up, and we are going to take a screenshot to pass along. Let's do a better job of not cutting off content. And we're just going to Control V, paste it in right there. And we should hopefully see Copilot start to debug that issue a little bit. Yeah, but it's become one of those things where it's become very easy to go back and forth. But again, depending on how much budget you have, how token conscious you are, this might be one of those things where you actually open up the code in an IDE yourself and debug it, and really just get hands-on to solve the issue. Sometimes it is quicker, it will be cheaper than having AI try to do it. Okay, yeah, and then we can see, I see the issue. It found the issue. So it's going to go through and try to resolve it. If you all are watching online, feel free to drop questions in the chat. We're happy to answer them. AI is one of those things, it's moving at 100 miles an hour. It feels like every 2 weeks there's something new going on. So it is really important to get those questions answered. I learn a lot from my own team members, my own colleagues, by asking questions, by always remaining curious. It's just the nature of the time, place, and circumstance we live in, and we just have to always remain curious. And one thing I just love doing nowadays is actually using AI to learn about AI. Okay, so let's jump back. Let's see if it's done anything. There we go. So there are definitely some UI issues, but we can see that it is loading a lot. It is loading the contribution graph now. There's a winner. We can, perhaps there is someone with that username. So yeah, so if it's empty, doesn't work. Matt, what's your GitHub handle?
It is CODEMILLMATT, CodeMill Matt.
Whew, Matt.
Oh, not even close. Look at that.
I have some catching up to do. Awesome. So I would call it a success. I would say much of the game, much of the UI is working the way it's intended. Of course, there are some issues, but that is where the iteration comes in, where we can say, add a tooltip, or the loading state needs a pulse animation. This is always the part I love to spend the most time on, because it's literally like the world is your oyster, things that earlier I would have to go up and like look up documentation for in terms of features or animations or just cool tidbits here and there. I can just write a sentence or two, and 30 seconds later I have it essentially. Okay, part 4. We're moving along at a good pace. I'm very excited and hopeful that we get to the delegate and the fleet tasks, which are some of the coolest in my opinion.
Nice.
So we have this prompt. I want to transform this page into a full retro arcade experience. So right now it's pretty basic. It's pretty boilerplate. Maybe it looks like a project from a high school, class project, but we're going to take it up a notch. Plan a comprehensive visual overhaul with a CRT scanline effect, neon glow, shimmers, float and animations. Wow, really the works. So let's go ahead and get a plan. And one thing you'll see here is we're also passing in specific hex codes for the colors we want Copilot to use. We have even given it a specific font from Google Fonts. So this is specifically in the context of this plan, but if you're working on a larger application, for example, this would all be great stuff to put into your instructions document, or perhaps into a skill if you wanted to do like a design review at the end of each new development cycle to make sure that everything stays the same according to your design principles at your organization or whatever you're working on. All right, should the CRT scanline effect be subtle? Matt, what do you want? Do you want it to be subtle or pronounced?
Pronounced.
Let's make it pronounced. And then we should get the detailed plan. When should the VS versus badge appear with animated gradient color shifts? During the battle, after the battle? Let's just say we want it during both. And okay, and what pace should the animations have? Slow and smooth, medium pace, fast and energetic. let's do fast and energetic. Why not? Feeling it. I really enjoyed this back and forth now with the Copilot plan mode. Before, Copilot would make or have to make a lot more assumptions, or it would manually have to ask for that feedback. But with this specifically built into the workflows now, it feels a lot more seamless. And in general, I've personally observed that the outcomes are a lot more predictable. Of course, there are those nuances, like we just saw. We wanted the contribution grid, but it actually didn't correctly implement it on the first try. But it is a really powerful tool, and I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to plan and then execute. I think that is the single greatest skill, or perhaps that's a bit of an overstatement, but it is one of the greatest skills that any developer can have in today's day and age, is the ability to use AI to develop thoughtfully designed plans such that AI has the intended effects. And you've probably seen throughout Dev Days today that oftentimes it's not just one agent working, you have multiple agents working at the same time. And so having those detailed plans allows those agents to work to a deeper extent without having to come back and wait for input from you. So we'll go ahead and accept plan and build on autopilot. Once again, check it outside of the scope of a workshop, but this is pretty low stakes, so we won't worry too much about it. Matt, anything I missed? Anything else you want to call out specifically?
No, I'm just trying to reproduce everything on my machine right now. I am back on step building the game. I'm just trying to get everything to work on building the game. So I'm iterating right now with Copilot. And kind of like you did, I'm asking it to do different things. I didn't, my prompt when it didn't come out right was, this doesn't work. And we'll see what it comes through. It says task complete now. And I'm going to refresh. And let's see if it works at all. Yeah,
Okay.
kind of, sort of. So it's working a little bit better. Yeah. So I'm just kind of going back and forth right now with it on autopilot mode and just letting it.
Yeah, sometimes the game is just patience.
Yeah,
And,
and that's where you mentioned before, where you kind of want to be super specific. And maybe even what I like to do sometimes is actually write down a plan in a document, in a markdown file, and hand it to Copilot that way. So it's almost like me coming up with a plan first. And kind of like how Copilot comes up with a plan out of plan mode. I come up with my own. I send that in the plan mode. That way I can be super specific. I can think this over and be, make sure I'm thorough in it. And sometimes I even run that plan through Copilot in Teams. So not GitHub Copilot, even though you could run it through GitHub Copilot, but I run it through a different AI and just say, hey, is this thorough? Does this make sense? And I kind of back and forth it that way. And then I just say, hey, Copilot, back in GitHub Copilot, read this thoroughly, read the whole thing, understand it, ask if you have any questions, and then create a plan for it. So then that way I don't have to type everything out right away, and I have this document that I can work off of. A lot of people call it a PRD, product requirement definition, or a specs file, and so on. So that's a way that I kind of like to at least approach it in the beginning of this, rather than trying to just fire off a prompt right into the Copilot text box.
And I really like how you emphasized some of the instructions to Copilot. Sometimes things that we assume we have to be explicit, like at the beginning we told it to do just the scaffolding or not do anything too complicated. So even emphasizing read my plan carefully and suggest X, Y, Z, and being repetitive sometimes in your instructions to Copilot can go a long way. I've personally noticed in my own use to keep it within the bounds, because as AI gets better, they are trying to make it better at predicting what you want. And I would say 8 out of 10 times it does a pretty good job. But again, the specificity is key, like you mentioned. So.
Yeah. With that said, here I'm just saying it's not working. Graph isn't showing up. So I'm seeing what happens. So sometimes it's fun. And also I'm using Haiku, a very fast model, just so it can iterate quickly.
Yes. All right, so I believe our retro theming has completed. So let's go back and open up our game here. There's a weird bug. We have 2 curly braces in the top left corner, but I guess that's fine. All right. Let's run the battle. Okay. Ooh. All right. I win. 192 contributions. We can see that there are some responsiveness issues with the grid going off the page, and right now, like enter doesn't work for battle, for instance. But again, they're all very simple fixes, either to do yourself or just tell Copilot directly. So we can actually tell Copilot, hey, Copilot, can you check the responsiveness of the application? The contribution grid is currently rolling off the player card, and surface/solve any other responsiveness issues. So the design process of developing with AI has more or less stayed the same, right? We first developed the plan, we got the data fetch working, we got a basic scaffolding up and running. We have now the V1 of our design up and running. Now we're working on responsiveness. So more or less, it's all stayed the same. It's just the speed at which you're able to iterate with AI. And again, this is a great place where having those skills can really help, because they can be dynamically pulled in and used to preemptively or proactively solve issues which you may have noticed happen otherwise with AI on a recurring basis. And as a developer, you'll start to pick up on patterns like, oh, this model specifically always tends to not add a scroll bar or not make it responsive, or there's this issue or that issue. So again, skills are a great way to mitigate some of that by handing AI quite literally a new skill to pull from in its toolbox. And I think, Matt, you were talking about Awesome Copilot essentially for that reason. It has a bunch of skills that you can pull from. Exactly.
It has a ton of skills there. It's actually built in to GitHub Copilot. So Ian, open up a new tab in your terminal. Just run Copilot. And then one day you'll get a new computer. I swear to you. You'll get a new computer one day. All right, here we go. So do /marketplace list. And you'll see that, what is it? Oh, plugin. I'm sorry, plugin marketplace /plugin marketplace list. And we can see that Awesome Copilot should be in there.
Yeah, there it is.
Yep. And so what you can do from there is you can start adding plugins from Awesome Copilot. And what plugins are essentially are their useful bundles of things, so whether they're instructions or skills or whatnot. So there should probably be a bundle for like maybe web development or something like that. I don't know if there is without looking, but yeah.
And if it's not there, make it yourself and contribute it.
Exactly. So yeah, exactly. Awesome Copilot is community-based. So.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, it went through the responsiveness issues. We can try it again. Hopefully, it looks better this time. I really love that versus animation. So
yeah, that's cool.
It's a little better. It's still a little odd with the scroll bar, but we'll call it a win for now. Good enough. So now let's continue on with the workshop. Implement retro theme. Yeah, these are all essentially things that would be great to do on your own time. Fine tune the vibes. We all love great vibes. Fine tune them. Make it what you want. Yeah, awesome. So now let's go to polish and parallel work. And speaking of which, my computer is at 7%. So let's try to get through that quick. I think we're on power saver, yeah. Or perhaps, maybe I should grab my charger. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah, at 7% you might want to.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if we can transition to my machine and I can just show what I came up with as far as my look. Is that my machine? Wow, everybody's fast. All right, is everybody ready for the big reveal? Look at this thing, what I've been doing over here. This is amazing. Look at that. It is, let's battle. Let's battle between me and Ian. And it is, could use a little bit of some CSS here, but I am totally digging this. The spinner and everything. Let's see, who else's name? Oh, I remember Bruno on my team. We'll battle it out. Bruno's going to beat me. Yeah, Bruno has 7,000 contributions. So, but yeah, totally cool to load something like this up. And let's see, do I have this open? So what I'm going to do here is close this, open up projects, Mayhem, open. So we're back, I'm back into VS Code for the time being. And I'm going to open a browser, view my browser. I'm going to bring in Mayhem into this. And I was kind of talking about this during my session, and I'm going to add the web browser to the agent. And with all the colors, you really can't tell, but trust me, it is highlighted. And what I can do here is I can add a specific element to the chat. So let's add this marquee, and I'm just going to say, make the marquee animate slower. And because it knows exactly what I'm talking about now, because it has it in there, and it should be able to do it pretty quick, and it does animate a little bit slower. Super Web 1.0 Battle Zone going fast. And so I'm glad it still tells us that we're under construction here. So yeah, so that's actually pretty cool. With one thing you can do with VS Code is that you can add specific elements to the chat, even though it is a little bit hard to see when it's this colorful and awesome. So cool. Let's see, what else are we looking at as far as the next steps of the game? So design first, theming. That's where I was. Implement the theme, fine-tune the vibes. I totally fine-tuned those vibes. Update the instructions, polish and parallel work.
I love the amount of color you had.
Isn't it? Probably
beautiful.
The best thing you've ever seen. Are you wearing your sunglasses, Ian?
Yeah, I think I need to. That's so. Did it do that out of the box, or did you have to go back and forth with it to get it to do that?
I told it to make it maximum GeoCities. Ian, do you even know what GeoCities is?
No.
Okay.
I know Geometry Dash.
Yeah, it's not that. All right, you may continue.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah. So yeah, we're to the final step now, which is Fleet. And the cool thing about Fleet is you can essentially spin up multiple agents to work on multiple tasks concurrently. So the way you run Fleet is there's a fleet / command. I'm going to go ahead and copy this and send it off, and then we'll keep talking a little bit about it. So in this case, we're asking it to improve the app in parallel. There's 3 different tasks. Add responsive CSS media query, so the comparison collapses into one column. Improve keyboard accessibility and focused visibility, improve the error experience with stronger validation, feedback, and arcade-style neon error states. So one of the cool things about Fleet, or something that intuitively you might think could happen, is you might run into race conditions where you have multiple agents trying to edit the same file, or there's conflicts. But it's really cool because there's some of that intelligence already built in. So if Copilot realizes or sees that there is a potential for a race condition, or that multiple agents need to access the same files, it will go ahead and press the brakes on one agent or another agent and wait for whatever needs to happen before passing over to another agent, which again is really powerful and really important. That orchestration is perhaps one of the most powerful tools when it does come to working with fleets of agents. And as you as a developer start to work with more agents, there's orchestration at the level of a specific folder or a specific project. But you also have to start thinking like an orchestrator as you work with multiple agents. How do you break up tasks into smaller segments that are, containered, such that you can essentially expand your productivity? And again, these are all things that, as developers, we have already been doing, but I find it to be a good reminder to remind myself sometimes that not much has changed other than the speed at which we're able to work at. We still have to have that same design thinking hat of how do we approach this problem in small incremental steps. And now there's just that little other additional nuance of how do we make sure that those steps don't compete with each other, essentially. Matt, do you have any suggestions, any experiences you have from working with multiple agents at the same time? Any tips, any tricks?
When you're working with multiple agents at the same time, I really find that what's difficult is really just kind of keeping everything straight, right? And the context is almost overwhelming, right? When you start dealing with everything. So, yeah. So I don't know if it's necessarily any tips. It's really just kind of I guess it's okay to go slow when you have a bunch of different agents going, and it's okay, I guess, to feel a little bit like, holy man, these things are going fast and they're doing a lot of work, but you still have to be in the middle, like we talked about before, Ian. You still are approving it and you still are reviewing it, and the agents don't get tired. So yeah, I guess it's okay to feel a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of work that they can push out, but you still have to be in the middle of it. So you still have to that's where it's going to help you when you're more explicit and very specific with your instructions to it.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And we can see our multiple agents are working here. If you run /tasks, you can see all the sub-agents that are working, and you can actually navigate through them and enter into different sub-agents specifically. You can steered if required or whatever. But again, it's a very cool thing. We are coming to the end of our time, so I did also want to talk about delegate. So there is a /delegate command. What delegate does, it's really cool. It will create a cloud coding agent that will run on github.com. So essentially, this is the equivalent of me saying, hey, Matt, I've created this issue, can you work on it? But instead of Matt working on it, we have a Copilot coding agent working on it. And sometimes what I've done is, as I'm leaving work, I will delegate a few different tasks, and by the time I reach home, I have PRs ready for my review, waiting to be just merged into the main branch. So another nifty tool for your toolkit is the delegate. This is, I guess, your homework, if I may say. Try it out on your own. Tell us what you think about it. One of my favorite tools, personally. But yeah, there we have it. We have our Mona Mayhem application. Honestly, I prefer Matt's version to mine, but it works. It does the job.
I don't know, Ian, yours is pretty good, but can we bring my screen up just for a sec, please? And because there's a special thing that I forgot to do before, and so everybody get ready for this. There's sound to this thing. Let's see if we can hear it. You hear that?
Yeah.
It's not good, but it's there.
It's like a
Wow.
little buzzer going off.
Yeah,
but
right?
Great proof of concept.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, no, it works. All right, though. Thank you, Ian. That was great. Mona Mayhem, gh.io/Mona-Mayhem. You'll get the instructions that Ian was going over. Give it a try. I mean, like we said, it's different. What you get every time is different. And so you're going to have to play with it. The more specific that you can be with the instructions that you give it, the better. All right, so that brings us to the end of GitHub Copilot Dev Days. I hope you had as much fun and learned as much as I did. We had a big old overview session in the beginning, then we dove in deep with the CLI. We took a little bit of I'm not going to say a detour. We took a look at VS Code, especially I really like the bring your own key and how you can, if you have a beefy machine, you can run all the models locally on your machine. Visual Studio, of course, who can forget about Visual Studio? And Wendy did a great job of showing off WorkIQ too. I love WorkIQ. And then also Ian came in here and we ran through this workshop. So great. So thank you very much, everybody. I am sure we are going to slice and dice all of these videos, so they're going to be individual, so you can come back to them and watch them over and over and over again. And until next time, leave your comments. We will read every single one of them. We will get back to you. And check out all of the links below as well. Love to hear anything you have to say. And happy agentic AI, agentic developing.